Political correspondent should take care of business.
All right, let's do it. Sateo's political correspondent taking care of business. And we got Ro Khanna coming up right after you. So
Sure, perfect.
it's fun. We'll do back to back.
Lovely.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining us. Today's first Left Hook episode is with the fantastic Prem Talker of Zateo. If you do not subscribe to Zateo and Prem Talker, you're making a mistake because he's one of the best journalists and reporters out there. He pretty much covers everything. And he's going to go right now to Washington, D.C. and talk to some elected officials. But before he does, he stopped by to talk about the latest in the Epstein scandal / the Epstein class. And specifically, I wanted him to discuss the ties to Israel because I've been following this for a bit. We've talked on the Left Hook about the ties to Russia, the ties to the UK, the ties to the Silicon Valley. I was wondering how come no one's talking about his ties to Israel. And then you had a piece out. How come no one's talking about his ties to Israel? And at the same time, Epstein's Jewish. You want to make sure you're not leading into these anti-Semitic conspiracies that the right wing in particular runs with. But you have to follow the evidence as well. So, Prem, what are the connections to Israel and why do they matter?
Yes. Well, firstly, thank you for having me. Hello, all of your lovely subscribers. Hope you're all having an okay time, at least staying warm in all the cold. I think to your point about all of his connections, what's important is that talking about Jeffrey Epstein's connections to Russia, to all sorts of countries in Europe, et cetera, is that it's okay that some of those are Israel. Like, it is, given how spanning his global network is and how much influence he had in all these places, it's unsurprising that those also included Israel. And it's become this weird third wire in the media that it's okay to talk about his connections to Russia or these European diplomats, these officials in the UK, but Israel was just always this third rail that couldn't be touched, which only fueled that conspiracy machine because it's like, okay, all these files show so much connection with all sorts of places. Why is Israel untouchable? And so these ranged from, of course, former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak. I mean, they had a long-standing line of communication and connection that I think also underscored the way that Epstein was not just a fixer for these people or financier, but also just a pal to so many of these people, which only underscored sort of how spanning this network was, such that he was constantly responding to these emails all the time in such casual manner, such casual fashion, amidst describing such horrifying things. There's, I think, the email that I think kind of encapsulates sort of the casualness of Epstein's connections to Israel is when he's talking to Ehud Barak in lead up to a meeting that he was setting up between Ehud Barak and former Qatari Prime Minister Hamad bin Jassim bin Jabbar Al Thani, in which he jokes, when you guys meet, make clear that I don't work for Mossad, smiley face.
Right.
And I think that encapsulates kind of how absurd it is that we apparently aren't allowed to talk about this connection between Epstein and Ehud Barak. I mean, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of documents in the Epstein files that link Epstein to Ehud Barak. Barak was also someone that repeatedly visited Jeffrey Epstein's homes in New York City and Florida. He traveled to Epstein's Island. He, at one point, was even asking him for advice on op-eds that he was writing. And Barak, I should say, has denied attending any of Epstein's parties or more vulgar activities. And after Epstein was arrested in 2019, Barak had said that he cut all ties with Epstein. But
it is important to note for those who don't know, but Ehud Barak is former Prime Minister of Israel, former head of the IDF, also worked in conjunction as he was rising up in the IDF with Mossad.
Indeed, absolutely, and I think that is important too, because Ehud Barak specifically as a figure, when he and Jeffrey Epstein were in constant communication, they weren't just chumming around or hanging out. Like Epstein was constantly trying to sort of help him with his post-Israeli government career. I mean, there's this crazy audio recording from the Epstein files in which Epstein and Barak seem to be chatting about Barak's future endeavors. And at one point, and this was, I think, in 2013, so this is 13 years ago now, in kind of beautifully poignant fashion given today's moment, Epstein was encouraging Ehud Barak to look into two different companies specifically. One of those is Palantir, the company that, for many of you know now, is the company that's not only aided Israel in raising Palestine, but it's also a company that's been helping ICE terrorize people in the United States. And so 13 years ago, Jeffrey Epstein was telling Ehud Barak, the former prime minister of Israel, that, yeah, you should look into Palantir. They might hook you up. They may put you on the board of the company. Like, let me set you up with my boy, Peter Thiel, who is also, of course, in the Epstein files alongside people like Steve Bannon. And so all to say, like, given Ehud Barak's connections, obviously directly to Mossad as a former prime minister of Israel, that Jeffrey Epstein and Barak's ongoing connections were specifically tied to things like the national security state, both abroad and domestically. I mean, that understandably would raise one's eyebrows. And that doesn't even get into all the other ways that Jeffrey Epstein was tied to or proximal to Israeli intelligence and Israeli security. Alongside working with Ehud Barak, he would be trying to broker these security agreements with the Israeli government and Mongolia. And I should add, before I continue, that a lot of this comes from our friends at Dropsite News, who poured through these files very extensively. So there's the security agreement with Mongolia. There's this moment, speaking of Russia, where Epstein seems to be trying to connect Ehud Barak to Vladimir Putin in this sort of back channel between Israel and Russia as they try to remove Bashar al-Assad in Syria. There's this other security and intelligence deal that he was trying to help the Israeli government sell to Cote d'Ivoire. There's this moment where he's pursuing funding from Edmund D. Rothschild, the mega bank, the Swiss mega bank, to fund this empire of cyber weapons for the Israeli government, and on and on and on. And even if that's not enough for you, Epstein also just welcomed an Israeli spy to stay at his apartment for weeks at a time. And so...
And we got that from the first batch. I think that was from 6 weeks ago, right? I think Dropsite figured out that was Ehud Barak's like aide or something that just casually stayed at the Epstein estate.
Yes, right, exactly. And I guess just for a final point on this is that there were also these allegations that came in the latest batch that seemed very sensational and kind of, just eye-catching. There was one allegation from this person named Mark Iverson to a redacted recipient, in which this Mark is describing his own alleged connections and encounters with Ghislaine Maxwell. He claimed that Maxwell was a spy and that he ought to stay away from her, that someone warned him that, you got to be careful about this Ghislaine character. In this email, that again is to a redacted recipient, Mark Iverson says that he suspects that Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Epstein were all Mossad agents who were trying to blackmail prominent people in the political and financial world. That was, it was unclear what exactly the context was of this email. This was just one guy saying something. Then there's this other document in the latest files from what's called a confidential human source, which is essentially an informant. This was an FBI document who kind of had somewhat similar accusations. Firstly, this informant, again, it's just an FBI document without much other information. We don't know if the FBI even really pursued this, but this informant is alleging that Alan Dershowitz, who was, Epstein's lawyer, that Dershowitz told them, this unnamed informant, that if he was young again, he would have been holding a stun gun as a Mossad agent. And so this informant believed that Dershowitz, again, Epstein's lawyer, was sort of co-opted and captured by Mossad and subscribed to Mossad's goals. And there was another part of this informant allegation where they believe that there were these phone calls between Dershowitz and Epstein. And after these calls, Mossad would then call Alan Dershowitz to debrief.
Yep.
And given this sort of weird interaction that this informant was observing, and given Epstein's own closeness to Ehud Barak, this person believed that Epstein was also a co-opted Mossad agent. And it goes on and on and on to level these allegations.
Well, even Maxwell, can you talk to us about Robert Maxwell? Because, I mean, you mentioned him, but Glenn's dad.
Yes.
I mean, those connections. Talk to us about that connection.
Yes. So Robert Maxwell, of course, also a fixer, a very powerful person in his own right, was someone who had also seemed to enjoy close connections to the Israeli government, such that, and again, I should add, kind of not just the Israeli government, but global influence, kind of in the same way that Jeffrey wielded influence as well. At Robert Maxwell's funeral, the Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir, the Israeli President Chaim Herzog, and several other Israeli intelligence officials were at his funeral.
Totally normal.
Right. I mean, who among us will not have such a similar situation? And it's worth adding, just to put a final point on all this, is that still, the allegations might be a little flimsy. We don't know what happened to them. Yes, there's all this long paper trail of Epstein's proximity to Israeli officials, to supporting the Israeli intelligence and security state. But Julie K. Brown, one of the reporters who cracked open so much of this for years, has herself said that it's not beyond the realm of possibility that perhaps Jeffrey Epstein had connections to the Israeli intelligence community as well. And she, to your point, she parallels that Robert Maxwell had those kinds of connections, and Epstein was quite close to Robert Maxwell as well. And so it's not far-fetched to at least explore this, given that there is this wide paper trail that is perhaps more extensive than Epstein's alleged relationships with other potential intelligence communities from other nations.
Yeah, and Robert Maxwell dies mysteriously in the latest batch of the Epstein files. Someone says, oh, Mossad might have killed him. He's buried in the Mount of Olives. His funeral, like you said, was attended by Israeli politicians and security agencies. Ghislaine Maxwell is his daughter. Jeffrey Epstein then gets close to Ghislaine. All of a sudden, then he falls into all this money. Ehud Barak, who is literally was the head of IDF, knows Mossad, is shown multiple times at Epstein. Virginia Giuffre, she mentions there's one foreign prime minister who repeatedly raped her. Many say that foreign prime minister is Ehud Barak. And, Prem, to your point, right, I've said this, if I'm Epstein, if I know Epstein is connected to all these powerful people and institutions and has blackmail on them, if I'm the foreign intelligence agents of any country, I want to then recruit him either willingly or unwittingly as an asset, because through him, I get information, right? So, and especially if Epstein used, and we know he used everything that he could. He was a master manipulator and he was a con man. If he used his Jewish identity to get, close to Jews, why wouldn't I then, as Israel, work that angle and then compromise him and or work with him to get information? If Russia's doing the same, if UK's doing the same, if America's doing the same.
Right, exactly. There's this pretty remarkable email that I think didn't get as much attention as some of the other ones, which is understandable, but it's this email that Jeffrey Epstein wrote in 2018 to a redacted recipient, and I'll read this just from verbatim, just to make sure I don't get anything wrong. He wrote it with the subject line, "He was passed away." And this email was about Robert Maxwell. It says, he told them that unless they gave him 400 million pounds to save his crumbling empire, he would expose all he had done for them. In that time, he had free access to Margaret Thatcher's Downing Street, to Ronald Reagan's White House, to the Kremlin, and to the corridors of power throughout Europe. Maxwell passed on all the secrets he learned to Mossad in Tel Aviv. In turn, they tolerated his excesses, vanities, and insatiable appetite for a luxurious lifestyle and women. He told his controllers who they should target and how they should do it. He appointed himself as Israel's unofficial ambassador to the Soviet bloc. If we did not know that was about Robert Maxwell, you might wonder if that sounded like someone else very familiar. And I might add that after he sent this email that was with the subject line, "He was passed away," Jeffrey Epstein was also passed away the following year. however you choose to take that phrase. Either way, he had passed away the following year after writing this email. And so, we sort of, theorize what might have been the case. We make these parallels between Jeffrey Epstein and Robert Maxwell. Robert Maxwell, someone who had very close ties to the Israeli government, such that he had Israeli intelligence and Israeli top officials at his funeral. And then Jeffrey Epstein himself writes this email that makes the parallels between him and Robert Maxwell almost too hard to miss. And so with all of that, you just have to wonder, why is this not being discussed? Why is it taking, all these independent medias from drop site news to
Bram, why is this not being discussed?
And here we are. I mean, not to, just totally say what people online say,
the
but
left hook. I mean, Zateo something, a ground, ground news is something. Ground, what is it called? Ground zero. What's the one?
Well, there's drop site, and then there's ground.
Drop site,
groundwork.
Zateo, left hook. But you're right. We're not the New York Times. We're not the Washington Post. We're not the BBC. We don't have that infrastructure, right? This is, we've heard about the Epstein Russia connections. We know heads in the UK are rolling right now. We know Mandelson, who was the UK ambassador to the US, had to resign, and he sent sensitive information to Epstein. He's being criminally investigated. But Israel, it's like, nope, can't talk about it.
And it is remarkable, sort of, the way in which the mainstream media seems to shield or avoid discussion on Epstein's potential ties to Israel, all the while in the United States, perhaps the only nation for which high-profile Epstein associates are not facing meaningful, substantial state scrutiny to step down from their positions. It's, not unprecedented that the sort of alliance between the United States and Israel pervades into even these other spheres where the entire world can be behaving one way, but the US and Israel are on their own other island, so to speak. And that's just kind of jarring. I mean, I don't know what you make of that. Just the fact that
I think we've seen it for the past 2 years, right? It's this ever since 1967. Israel is the special relationship that gets exempt from international law. We saw with Biden, the Democrat, the liberal, who had no problem funding Netanyahu, a war criminal. There was no red lights. There was all green light. We saw for 2 years what happened to Mehdi and so many other people got canceled. Joy Reid, let's go down the list, right? We're seeing what's happening with AIPAC right now, where the Democratic centrists are perfectly fine with AIPAC sabotaging their New Jersey 11th district. Well, now they're pissed off, right? And then you saw, let's be honest, anyone, especially brown and Muslim, but not just brown and Muslim, Melissa Barrera, the Scream 7's coming out. Melissa Barrera should be in Scream 7. People forget, I keep receipts. Melissa Barrera, 2 years ago, the lead actress of Scream, shared an article saying, I think Israel's committing a genocide. They got rid of her. That's why Nev Campbell's back in Scream 7 and people are boycotting, folks. It's like, this is what happens when you confront power. So it's about power, right? And I think it's top down since 1967. The entire American infrastructure is like Israel, special relationship, politics, money, and then also ideologues. Let's be honest. Chuck Schumer is an ideologue. Biden is an ideologue. I mean, Prem, did you see that a week and a half ago? With everything that's happened, and with Democrats seeing the polls, Chuck Schumer, what he said on camera about his role as a senator. Can you remind people?
One of his main jobs is to make sure that the U.S. supports Israel and keeps giving aid to Israel, which, to your point, there's a million and one things that the leader of the opposition party could be focused on, no less when not only his base, but most of the country is actually skeptical of the U.S. relationship to Israel. No less when there are intersecting stories of the world's most infamous pedophile who is attached to your opposition, Donald Trump, who also evidently seem to have very good close connections to the Israeli government. It seems like the opposition message, in fact, kind of writes itself. Instead, he's pulling up to the function saying, one of my main jobs is to make sure that we keep supporting Israel. Which, I mean, also something that I know we wanted to talk about is particularly crazy when Israel is currently, as we speak, every single day violating the ceasefire.
And I wanted to ask you that. I wanted to ask you that before you ran. is that people have forgotten about Israel. And I know on the left hook we kept covering. I'm going to get back to it. Talk to us about what's happening in Gaza as the world has forgotten.
Yes, I mean, so we're in a week out from the Board of Peace, so-called Board of Peace, that Donald Trump, the ever peaceful Donald Trump, is leading. That will meet in D.C. in about, I think, 9 days. And up until then, and up to this point, since the supposed ceasefire, has been inked, Israel has just been constantly violating this ceasefire. I mean, I think it was a week ago that there was this headline that was going through the sort of mainstream pressers that, it's been today was the most violent day or deadliest day since the ceasefire started. That sentence, in a very elementary way, does not compute. You cannot have a deadliest day since the ceasefire, because that also implies that there have been other deadly days since the ceasefire. And there cannot be a ceasefire if there is even one deadly day. Also that same week, so what happened was we had Chuck Schumer saying that we got to keep the aid to Israel going. That's one of my main jobs. We had, the deadliest day since the ceasefire, where I believe it was 31 to 32 Palestinians were killed. We had the 2-year anniversary of Hind Rajab being killed. I had reached out to the Trump administration to see if they had any possible different answer than the Biden administration on the killing of Hind Rajab. Her family members, the medics were sent to save her. They had nothing for me. I got no response. And the Trump administration bypassed Congress to send billions more to Israel, all before Congress then okayed another $4 billion in aid to Israel.
That just happened last week, right?
All in the past week and a half, all of that happened at once amid the ceasefire. And so it was a very troubling week, particularly because, as we have been asking about Hind Rajab for the past 2 years, both parties, both administrations, one important reason for this was that Hind Rajab, as many of you know, is one of the most famous victims of Israel's genocide. She is someone who more people than not know who she is. This is someone who, for weeks on end, there was global campaigns, where is Hind, where is Hind? And then we found out where she was, which was killed by the Israeli forces. If we cannot get, let alone justice, just answers about an investigation into the most well-known victim of this, what is the promise for justice or answers on any of the tens of thousands of people and kids who have also been killed? And the answer to that is, in the absence of any sort of truth or reconciliation, we get billions more in aid to the culprits. We get the opposition leader saying, yeah, we should support them. And that's one of my main jobs.
And can I add something which is infuriating? I mean, really infuriating, and something I know Democrats hate hearing this, but I try to be very fair on the show. Joe Biden, it's Biden's lasting sin. His lasting legacy, I think, will be to be complicit in this genocide. And I think, to the points that we discussed, ideologue. He is trapped in the embers of the post-67 world. It was refused to adapt, and evolve. And he repeated Israeli talking points. And one of the most devastating talking points that was repeated for the past 2 years is that we cannot trust the death toll. We cannot trust the death toll because it's the Gazan Ministry of Health and Hamas, and it's all lies, blah, blah, blah. You all remember that? Even though the State Department trusted, even though the United Nations trusted, Israel said, you can't trust it. They're all liars. Today, folks, in February, Israel, the same government that said, you can't trust these numbers, the 70,000, they just tell them what they casually said just last week. Israel.
Yes. So the Israeli government, amid all of this, then said that they accept the death toll that the Ministry of Health had been keeping track of, which lists, as of today, a little over 72,000 people who have been killed. And to your point, Waj, there's a few conclusions we should take out of this. First is that we should remember that even over the course of the past 2.5 years, there were reports that privately the Israeli government was accepting these numbers as well as the U.S. State Department and so forth, as you mentioned. But what's more troubling is that why, on the brink of perhaps more international press access to Gaza, hopefully, even though that's still not the case. Yes, guys, that's right. International press are still having trouble getting into Gaza. But on the brink of more access into Gaza, why would the Israeli government finally, after 2.5 years, admit that they accept the death toll of 72,000 people, as in accept culpability for killing 72,000 people? The likely answer, or unfortunately the feared answer, is that that number is incredibly conservative. I mean, we just have a series on Zatea that I recommend you guys all check out, from Dr. Feroz Sidwa, that really gets into what the actual death toll in Gaza might be. And I'll let you guys read the series. It's very, very, very good. I highly recommend it. We just published it over the past week. The number may be, and this is something that has been echoed as well by many other human rights organizations, it could be in between 100,000 to 200,000 people have been killed, if not more. I mean, he might, for respect to him, he might even be conservative and careful as well. And I mean, if you just look at the images, if you look at any video or clip of what Gaza looks like now, that is exactly the kind of conclusion you would reach. I mean, I don't know, Waj, how you think about this, but just seeing the numbers, X% of buildings being uninhabitable, the fact that more people are just intense than at any sort of semblance of what they could call home, the fact that just when you look at Gaza, you see what Al Jazeera's investigation revealed today, which is that Israel was dropping U.S. supplied bombs that, in effect, and I quote, vaporize human life.
And last year, I want to remind people that Lancet, the respected medical journal, said that the number, which was at 60,000, was a severe undercount, and that the number was likely much, much higher. And so we're looking at least six figures, folks. And we have to ask ourselves why our government keeps giving money, why the military-industrial complex keeps feeding it, why Jeffrey Epstein was involved. Right. And go to all the countries. I try to be very fair. If there's some Muslim sultans mentioned, go after the sultans, go after Qatar, go after UAE. I've been very transparent. Go after Saudi Arabia. Why did Kushner give him $2 billion? Why did he get $2 billion from Kushner? Right. Go after all these countries. But specific with Israel, Israel cannot continue its genocide and its occupation without U.S. money. I want people to realize that. That's why so many people are like, well, why do you care so much about Israel? Because Israel and U.S. is like this. And without U.S. support, financial support, military support, it can't happen. So that's why people feel like there is a specific call, a moral call for us to do what we can to influence our elected officials to stop what's happening in Israel. And last thing I'll say is, some people say it's not Jews, it's Israel. Correct. I try to be very careful here, right? Because I don't want to lead into the anti-Semitism that is flourishing on the right, by the way, right? We're talking about Israel, and there are many Jews have joined Palestinians and a multicultural, multi-faith coalition calling out Israel's genocide. They too have lost their jobs. They too have been called capos. They too have been called traitors. So, folks, I want you all to know that we try to be consistent here. If you're doing the connections between Epstein and Russia, you're doing the connection between Epstein and the UK, you're doing the connection between Epstein and the Middle East, Israel's there, man. And not only that, you follow the money trail. And the last thing I'll say, there's also people like Leslie Wexner and Leon Black, who also have ties to Trump, Russia, and Israel, and also have ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Why, oh why, Prem, did they give hundreds of millions of dollars to Epstein for estate and tax planning?
Yes, I mean, exactly. It's I think the issue that I think you and I and many others run into is that, so easy it is for some people, unfortunately, to get into these sort of more hateful conspiracies, when it's like, when you look outside in our world, you don't need to create this sort of secret, unseeable kind of force that implicates this specific group of people demographically. Everything that's happening is right in front of you.
That's right.
So long as you look at the institutions of power themselves and sort of prominent individuals themselves, rather than sort of directing it towards people like Jewish people.
Hey, welcome, bro. Hi. Hey, take your time, chill. I was waiting for you to come on, but then Prem was just jumping off. Prem, Thanks for joining us. Before we get Congressman, can you shamelessly promote yourself? We're talking about
Yes,
the Epstein scandal, so it's gonna like
indeed,
right
indeed.
to you.
Well, yes, thank you, first of all, for
Three
having us.
Daisies in the same shot. I don't know. That's maybe too much overload.
Three Daisies in the same slot talking against the Epstein class and speaking for accountability. I want to just say that there are no
There
cash
you go.
patels
Yeah.
in attendance,
Well, as far as we know,
as far as we know. Prem,
if yes,
shamelessly promote
if
yourself. We'll go to Congressman.
if you want any more daisies that are covering the Epstein class or any other abuses of power in the U.S. and abroad, as always, please subscribe and support Zateo, and we'll keep trying to produce work that you will not find, as Waj said, in the mainstream press. Thank you all so much, and take care.
Prem, one Daisy's gone. We're going to replace you with another Daisy. Thanks so much, buddy.
A good
Congressman
one do you
Rosana is
have.
doing fantastic work. Thank you so much. I texted you late last night. I know you're so busy. I said, we got to keep the focus on Epstein. And you broke some news right before you jumped on. Can you tell us about the names, sir?
Well, there were 6 names that Thomas Massey and I forced the DOJ to release. I mean, they had basically protected these people, like Les Wexner, like the Sultan from the Dubai port, and there are 4 others. I went to the House floor and read those names. They are named as co-conspirators. And so when people are saying, "Oh, there are no other co-conspirators," well, we just forced 6 people who the DOJ was protecting as co-conspirators. But the problem is that Massey and I only spent 2 hours. Imagine how many other people are being protected in the 3 million files. And the problem is that the files that the Department of Justice got from the FBI were already redacted, because you remember that Donald Trump ordered these files to be purged, to be scrubbed back in March. And even though our law requires those to be unscrubbed to get the unredacted version, basically DOJ got the redacted versions from the FBI. And so the most sensitive things, the most hard hitting allegations against these rich and powerful people are all redacted.
I want to give the names. I have it right here. Salvador Nuara, Zorab, Mikal Adze, Leonik Leonov, Nicola Caputo, Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem. And those are the names that you got. And I think this is really important. We've talked about this before. Allison Gill talked about it, that last March, FBI agents were stuck in a room for 24 to 48 hours, and they were instructed to find the name of one person and scrub the name of one person, Donald Trump. And they were all using the same Excel sheet. And one of them, or someone who's there who had access to the Excel sheet, became, if you will, a whistleblower. And there are some FBI agents, we assume, that are trying to tell people we saw some terrible things. Going back to that time period, is there any way we can actually have access to some of these FBI agents, Congressman? Can you ask some of them to testify about what they were instructed to do by Pam Bondi?
Yes, we should have them in front of the oversight committee. We should subpoena them. Comer should be spending his time subpoenaing them instead of the goose chase that he's trying for political reasons. We should be having Kash Patel in front of the oversight and explaining when we're going to get the unredacted files. Because I believe that not only were they protecting Trump, I believe they were protecting rich and powerful people in this country. By the way, it's not clear to me simply Republicans. I just think the more we've seen, it's a club. You know, you have Donald Trump saying, "No, I don't want Bill Clinton to testify." I think if you're part of this club, if you're part of the rich and powerful, if you're part of this club,
I can hear you, Congressman, but I can't. There you go. You're back.
I think if you're part of this club, then you don't have accountability, and that you don't want to be held accountable. And so they were probably protecting anyone who was part of this club.
And, I want to give you credit for this, because I see this word going mainstream now, and it's the Epstein class. And I'm like, oh, that's a really good term. And I want to give Daisy's credit before Gora's take it from you. But talk to us. You're the one who coined the Epstein class. What's the Epstein class?
It's not just the term that I had coined, it's the thought behind it, because people were seeing this just as about pedophilia, which is sick, and about sex crimes. But I said, no, it's actually a class issue. And the reason that term came to me is because I met the survivors. And all of these survivors, so many of them came from working class backgrounds. So many of them didn't have a father. And then I started to see who their abusers were, who the rapists were, who the pedophiles were. And it turns out many of them were extraordinarily wealthy. Many of them had access to power or finance. And I said, this is really a class issue. It's about a group of people who think they're so above the law that they can treat other human beings as disposable, that they can discard other human beings, that they don't have any sense of decency and humanity and how people are there, that they can use people for their own gratification with no consequence, and that they know that they're going to face no consequence. And this Epstein class needs to be held accountable, or we're going to continue in a country that has two tiers of justice. We're going to continue in a country where some people are abusing the system or extracting from the system, making extraordinary profits as defense contractors, as insurance executives, as big pharma executives, as people who are parading us into overseas wars, as abusive ICE agents, while other Americans are felt as dispensable. This is the core issue in our country.
And it's a great quote that I always return to. George Carlin said, "It's a big club and you ain't in it." And it's the Epstein files have proven it. And speaking about that club, and we just look at the evidence, right? I don't believe in conspiracy theories. We just look at the evidence before us. The name that is mentioned more in the Epstein files is Donald Trump, more than even Epstein. There are names in the Trump administration that have direct ties to Jeffrey Epstein. And one of the names is Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick. Can you talk to us about, how he shows up, and why does he still have his position, sir?
He should be long gone. And it's an indictment not on Donald Trump, it's an indictment on America that he's still there. In other places, if you have one email correspondence with Epstein, basically people are having a total meltdown in terms of the government, right? And maybe that's excessive, and how Eastern Europeans are doing it. You even at a social meeting with him, you're basically tainted and may be removed from office. But in our country, you have someone, Howard Lutnick, who lied about his association with Epstein, who was allegedly invested with Epstein after he was convicted of pedophilia, who allegedly went to the island, and he's still in the cabinet and with no consequence. He obviously needs to be fired. There are even Republicans saying this. I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat, MAGA or not. If you want to send a message that we actually care to say no to pedophilia and that we're going to stand up for people who are basically condoning or associating with pedophiles, then you should be for Lutnick resigning. I promise you, I would call for someone like that to resign if it was a Democratic administration.
And he lied. And, Senator Van Hollen asked him, did you in fact make the visit to Epstein's private island? I'm going to quote him. Lutnick today said, "I did have lunch with him as I was on the boat going across on a family vacation. My wife was with me, as were my 4 children and nannies. We had lunch on the island." That's true. For an hour. We left with all of my children. He lied, Congressman.
Well, he has lied about his trips to the island. He's lied about his relationship with Epstein. He hasn't come clean about why he was investing with Epstein. And I guess people are saying, well, okay, he's trying to say, well, I didn't engage in heinous behavior of raping underage girls or having sex with girls on that island. And maybe that's true. But the question is a deeper one. The question is, if you are so concerned about being part of a club, so concerned about being part of the who's who and getting financing, are you willing to just ignore the fact that underage girls are being raped? Are you willing to just turn a blind eye to that fact because of your own status and your own money? And obviously, in Lutnick's case, the answer is yes. And the question then for America is that the type of person you want in leadership of the nation? Someone who, for their own finances, their own social status, is perfectly comfortable socializing and doing business, allegedly, with a pedophile because of their greed. That is an indictment on our national character.
It's not just an indictment on our national character. It's an indictment of power. It's an indictment of all these individuals, like you said, who partied with Jeffrey Epstein, met with Epstein, exchanged disturbing and or friendly notes with him after he was convicted. And there's one group in particular that seems to have not cared at all. And I'm talking about the Silicon Valley bros who used to like you, but they don't anymore. I mean, because we're talking about the Trump administration. It isn't just people in the Trump administration. I want to remind people, Elon Musk was the head of Doge, gave over $300 million. Peter Thiel hand-delivered JD Vance. They're all up in these files. And not only are they all up in these files, it seems that they shared Epstein's type of perverse dystopian worldview. How do we go after these people? Because Peter Thiel is connected to Palantirs, connected to Ehud Barak's, connected to the UK, connected to JD Vance, connected to Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein.
Well, it's interesting because, as you know, I've called for billionaires to pay more tax, and some of these people have now started attacking me and trying to support my primary challenger. And
It will only help you, sir. Keep attacking them. I'm telling you, it will only help you if you have ambitious aspirations for elected office. But please continue.
Well, so they've been doing that, and then someone said to me, and I don't know if it's true, but it hadn't even occurred to me. And he said, "Bro, you realize the real problem with you is not just that you want this higher billionaire tax. It's two things. It's one that you've called what happened in Gaza a genocide, and a lot of them are using this billionaire issue of billionaire tax to go after you, where their real concern is what your stance was on Gaza. And second, they see you as exposing the Epstein files, and many of the biggest folks are in those Epstein
Right.
files." And I didn't even think of that, actually. I thought, I'm kind of was like, yeah, they just disagree with me that don't want to pay more tax. But the reality is, you have a group of people of extreme wealth, some in finance, some in tech, in some in Hollywood, and they all feel like they're part of the same club. It's amazing to me how they're all in the same club. Like, how is it possible that one person knows all these people and inviting them to the island, even if there wasn't anything sinister going on? It's kind of a terrible look for the country's elite that they all just hang out together with no concern for the communities they grew up in, and it's like one big social club. And they've done, of course, in this case, heinous things.
How do we, because so many people are watching this and they're like, it is a big club. It seems that the world is run by 600 to 800, very powerful people who see the rest of us as disposable and who see girls specifically as their toys, and they have no problem raping them, abusing them, or as you said, have no problem working with the people who raped and abused them as long as it helps their end goal and their bottom line. How can we, the people who feel increasingly powerless because the institutions no longer belong to us, how do we hold these people accountable, Congressman?
By mass movements, by mobilization, by doing things like Thomas Massey and I are, by risking our reputation, our career, to say we're on the side of the people. Ultimately, popular movements win. Ultimately, the people have the last say. But what these folks rely on is popular indifference. They rely on sort of a normal time where, okay, we'll go vote and we'll focus on watching football and taking care of our families, and let the elite worry about ruling. But if we have a moment where we've woken up in this country, as we did when Bernie Sanders was running, as we seem to be doing now across this country. I mean, Anna Lilia just won her New Jersey race on a very progressive platform. Then I do think that we will prevail. I mean, this is the time for a transformative moment in our politics.
I want to do a compare and contrast. For those who aren't following, and we've been covering this on the Left Hook, heads are rolling in the UK, folks. They've started criminal investigations into Pete Mandelson. Starmer's chief of staff resigned. I don't know if Starmer survives this. His back is against the wall. And Starmer, by the way, folks, never met Epstein or was on his island. Now let's come across the Atlantic to the United States, Congressman Khanna. No investigations, no prosecutions. Instead, we're investigating Renee Good's spouse, not Officer Ross. I believe you used the term cover-up. I've been using the term since the summer. I believe this is the biggest political cover-up in modern history. Am I off in that assessment?
I would have said you were off in the summer, but I don't think you're off now. I mean, I really have been shocked as the guy who led the fight with the Epstein Transparency Act. I didn't think so many people were caught up in this. I didn't think that, in fact, someone in Silicon Valley said to me that he's the son of a prominent person. He said, I was Googling the name and I was relieved my father wasn't in it. I was like, why would your father be in it? He's because everyone else is in it, right? I mean, it's just incredible how broad the scope is. And then I'm just amazed how inept and how secretive the Trump administration has been. That at every step they're hiding something, and so yeah, it's a huge cover up, and it's a cover up not just about Trump or the Trump administration. It's a cover up about the most rich and powerful people in our country. And that's why this is of an order of magnitude bigger, in my view, even than Watergate. I mean, Massey said that, and
I
I
agree.
think what he was saying is that this is not just about a president. It's not just about an administration. It's really an indictment of the established elite in America and in countries around the world.
Uh, about Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, do you agree with their request that it should be their hearing should be public?
I do. I mean, look, I'm glad they're testifying. Why not have it out in public? And then why not have every testimony like this in public? But they're not making that a condition. If they'll do whatever. And I'm glad they've done that, because it makes it much easier now for people like me to say, well, Donald Trump needs to do that. Bill Gates needs to do that. Every single person, Lutnick needs to do that. We need to have transparency. And if you can have a former president doing it, well, that sets the standard that everyone needs to play by the same rules.
And I completely agree with you, because I think you agree with me. I heard you say this, that I don't care, Congressman, if there's a Democrat, a Republican, a leftist, a rightist, a billionaire, a philanthropist. If you are in those files and it is shown that you either allegedly raped girls or covered it up or didn't care, you have to answer questions. Do you agree with me?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the third point is important, that you didn't care. You showed up and underage girls were being paraded naked. Or because not everyone in the files were actually raping underage girls, but some of them were having rape with underage girls, and some of them may have been abusing girls who were 18 or 19, and in conditions where they had alcohol and conditions where they were being abused. So there's a lot of disgusting, disturbing stuff. And at the very least, if you have emails that say that you were going to this island, going to the ranch, going to the home, you have to answer questions. These people have never been investigated.
Never. Well, I want to, before I get to another name, Leon Black, Leslie Wexner, they're alive, billionaires. Leslie Wexner gave over $100 million to Epstein. Leon Black gave $170 million. In 2019, what we found out from the last batch, that I think came out 6 weeks ago, that the FBI had 10 co-conspirators along with Epstein. 3 of them are named. One is Ghislaine Maxwell. Another is Leslie Wexner. Another one is Jean-Luc, the French businessman who died via suicide. We still don't know the names of the other 7. Can we get Leslie Wexner and Leon Black to finally testify?
Well, Leslie Wexner, we're deposing him on February 18th, and Leon Black should be testifying as well. I mean, the Apollo or whatever his firm is still getting
All management, right?
all about billions of dollars. They're still thriving, and you've got these people who are allegedly being named for awful things, escaping potential accountability because they're rich, because people want their money. And that it's just it's so corrosive to any sense of democratic trust.
How you're in the minority right now, but it's a very small minority. You just need like 1 or 2 defects in the House.
Now,
Do you feel any pressure? Because I see what's trying to happen to Thomas Massey. Thomas Massey, I disagree with him on, I'm sure like me, you disagree with him on a lot, but on this, I give him respect. He has risked his neck. Republicans are coming after him. Has he been able to convince even 2 of your Republican colleagues? Because you're almost there. Because I think people right now, they want impeachment, they want hearings, they want removal, not just over this, also over the ICE murders, right? And the ICE killings. What traction have you seen with Republicans, especially yesterday, when many of them were given access for 30 minutes and saw the files themselves?
we're seeing some bipartisan anger and outrage at Lutnick. We're seeing outrage at what happened with the Ghislaine Maxwell deposition, where she basically pled the fifth and refused to answer any questions. We're seeing outrage at Pam Bondi and them hiding the files and protecting people. So I do believe we can have a bipartisan consensus. Obviously, we created that coalition when we got the Epstein Transparency Act passed, but it's going to take work, and Massey are committed to doing it.
Has any Republican, and you don't have to name them, come to you like privately in the last 2 days and said, this is very difficult. I can't, there's only so much I can protect Donald Trump, because now, honestly, I used to say guardians of the pedophiles. Now, even the right wing, I don't know if you've been paying attention on social media, they're losing some right wingers over this.
Well, I believe that they've lost a lot of people on the right wing. I was on Sean Ryan's podcast. It was one of the big podcasters in 2024. who was all in for Donald Trump and now said, I'm done with him. He's protecting pedophiles. That's the final straw. And he said this on the podcast. So they're losing some of their base. They're realizing that their base is splitting with Trump on this. And that's why I do think you probably got a dozen or so Republicans who are open to voting with us on specific issues.
Where do you think you can get them? And the reason why I'm drilling down on this is when you say cover up, it isn't just the Trump administration. For me now, it is also those elected officials who are not using their power to hold these people accountable, right? To do investigations, hearings, impeachment. Where do you think you can win over these 12 Republicans?
I believe we have a shot to win them over on Pam Bondi's impeachment. We have a shot to win them over on Howard Lutnick being fired. We certainly should be winning them over and getting Kash Patel before the Oversight Committee to explain the redactions. We should be winning them over and getting the FBI files unredacted. And we should have a hearing of everyone mentioned in these files who went to the island to come to Congress and testify. That is the coalition that can be built.
Let me ask you two final questions and let you go. And I appreciate, usually it takes me a while to get you on, but you responded immediately this time because I think it's important. The Ghislaine Maxwell of it all, to me, Congressman, is a clear example of cover-up. We still don't know who or why she was authorized, we know, to move from Florida to minimum security camp. She's getting pampered. As of yesterday, she pled the fifth. And now her attorney openly said, essentially, oh, we'll exonerate Donald Trump if you commute our sentence. And Donald Trump, Congressman, twice at least, I know he's been asked whether or not he'll pardon Ghislaine Maxwell. He hasn't said no. Explain to us the Ghislaine Maxwell of it all, because I'm afraid Trump will pardon her.
Well, she said yesterday that she knows 25 or so other people who abused or raped these young girls, but she's not going to tell us unless we give her full clemency. And then she says, I will tell you that Bill Clinton and Donald Trump did nothing wrong. And so basically, she is trying to get a deal from Donald Trump to throw under whoever she wants to throw under and to exonerate him in exchange for a pardon. But she often engenders a worse emotional reaction with some of these survivors than even Jeffrey Epstein. I've been in the room,
Right.
and it just is such a gut punch to them when they hear anything about Maxwell being pardoned, because she is the one who recruited them. She's the one who manipulated them. She's the one who was there during the abuse, and so I said she needs to go immediately back to a maximum security prison.
And some of Republicans last night, I'm sure you saw, as they were coming out, Lauren Boebert even, they were asked, what about Maxwell? And they said she should be in prison forever. A quick follow-up to that, the survivors. I've read that they feel betrayed by what has happened, that instead of getting justice, they were exposed by this Trump administration. They thought that some names would be removed, but their names were actually shown. What have the survivors said in the past week, Congressman?
They're very hurt and angry and traumatized that so many of their names were revealed. Some of them were revealed when they were minors in some of the photographs. They are angry that people aren't being held accountable. They don't want just people exposed. They want them prosecuted. There's one person who told me about how she was raped in Paris at 17 and how the person is in the files. And she said, well, what's going to happen? I see the person in the files, but are you going to actually prosecute him? They want to see justice. Now, I do think that they or feel seen. They've been screaming this for the past 30 years, and they were called crackpots and liars and exaggerators. They finally feel seen, and they know that this is now something that Americans think is one of the biggest scandals in our history. But they want to see accountability.
We all want to see accountability. And speaking about accountability, the final topic is we keep our eyes on several balls here in the left hook. ICE murdered 2 American citizens, Renee Nicole Good and Alex Preddy. They also killed at least 7 other people in the past month and a half. 31 people have died in custody that we know of. They're still terrorizing our cities and streets. I believe we should abolish ICE. Are you there yet?
I'm for tearing it down, of course. Yeah, and I think we need an immigration enforcement agency. I mean, that's why I believe it should be like the INS was from in the 1940s to 2003, but with human rights and constitutional rights and some form of intelligence sharing to make up for understanding of what happened with 9/11. But absolutely, we need to tear down this agency. And what I have said, and it's not a view widely shared, but it's one that I think needs to be the Democratic position, which is not a additional dollar for Donald Trump's ICE for not just 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years, but his entire term. That until they tear down this agency and until they have a new agency that respects constitutional rights, not an additional dollar. And that should be our line. This should be the line in the sand. This should be where we don't fold. I don't want to fold just because they say, okay, we're going to have masks and no masks in extraordinary circumstances, or we're going to have body cameras. I'm for all of those things, but no additional funding until they tear down the agency. And if that means no additional funding for 3 more years of Donald Trump, that has to be the Democratic stance.
And there's a couple of days left because for those who have been following, DHS funding is coming up, I think, just in a couple of days. How do you put pressure on Senator Schumer to follow that stance, which I believe is far more popular and the base wants, because the base does not want to be complicit in ICE terrorizing their cities anymore. And we saw as of yesterday, Republicans are even balking at the Constitution. Republicans are even balking at the Fourth Amendment. They're like, no judicial warrants, which is in the Constitution. So we're dealing with these people who are literally going against the Constitution. But I believe you got to play hardball. How do you convince Senator Schumer?
Well, by going on podcasts like yours. I mean, maybe this clip will be shared by other, not just progressives and activists, by other Democrats around the country, and then saying, why can't we get every Democrat saying the same thing? No additional funding for Trump's ICE, not for this time, not for 3 years, and that we need a new immigration enforcement agency that follows the law and that actually follows the Constitution.
Amen. I'm going to let you go 1 minute before. Congressman Khanna, thank you so much. Final word to you, sir.
This is a time for a new moral vision on Gaza, a new moral vision in taking the Epstein class accountable, a new moral vision against ISIS abuse, a new moral vision for a multiracial constitutional democracy that respects the dignity and rights of every person in this country. That's really what the Democratic vision should be.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Keep up the good work, you and Congressman Massey. Hopefully you can get some more Republicans, and hopefully Senator Schumer and Representative Jeffries are listening to you. Take care,
Thank you.
That was Congressman Ro Khanna, and we also had Prem Talker, folks, who joined us a bit late, nearly 2,300 people. We just kept it rolling, and I appreciate his team for making that happen. I texted him late last night, and I said, listen, just I know you're busy, just get on, because I want to keep the pressure on Epstein. For those who haven't been following in the UK, we had a fantastic conversation yesterday with Nafeez Ahmed. And Nafeez did a great work taking the connections between the oligarchy, Peter Thiel, Palantir, Silicon Valley, Epstein, their perverse world order, how it's all connected, and then what happened with the UK with Pete Mandelson and the Keir Starmer government, which, by the way, folks, maybe he'll survive. I don't know. So if you're looking at UK right now, heads are rolling. They're literally criminal investigations. People are resigning. In the United States of America, nothing. No investigations. Howard Lutnick still Secretary of Commerce. Elon Musk, Peter Thiel still getting their contracts. The person mentioned the most in the Epstein files, Donald Trump, said, it's time to move on. It should infuriate you. And I'm good to see we're making Roe a little bit more progressive there. I remember if you've been following Roe in the summer, I'm like, I think it's a genocide, Roe. He's like, well, why do you have to call it a genocide? Now he calls it a genocide. I think last time I talked to him, I'm like, it's time to abolish ICE. He goes, tear it down and replace. But now he's like, yeah, tear it down. And then so the point is, we got to push them. We have to push them. And with Roe, I give credit where credit's due. He's listening to the people, right? You see certain individuals listening to the people taking on the fight. Ossoff, senator from Georgia, even though he's a vulnerable senator, you see him at least picking up the mantle, right? Van Hollen, folks, I'm telling you, even though he's understated, the most consistent dude, Van Hollen. Really, like in a perfect world, Van Hollen would have a much higher profile. This guy's been on top of it. Ro Khanna has been fantastic. AOC has been fantastic, right? So they're listening and they're shifting, which is exactly what you want them to do. You want them to listen and to shift. I'm straight rolling, even though I usually don't, but fine, I'm going to straight rolling because We got David Morris coming, and I'm going to tell David, David just sent you an invite. David is reached out to me, and David wrote this book called Stealing the Future, Sam Bankman-Fried, Elite Fraud and the Cult of Techno Utopia, and specifically the Silicon Valley bros and how they're connected to this perverse vision, this techno-fascism, which now we know is directly connected to Epstein. So I sent an invite to David. Hopefully he'll come on in a minute. But I'll share. David, how's it going, man? We're rolling. We got you 2,400 people because right before you, we had Congressman Ro Khanna.
I saw. I can't believe it.
No, it's fine. So we got Prem, we got Congressman Khanna, and we got now for the first time ever, David Morris. American Prospect said that his book is, quote, among the most important books of the year. It's called Stealing the Future, Sam Bankman-Fried, Elite Fraud. Is it Fried or Fried?
Fried, F-R-I-E-D.
And then David is a technology and finance reporter. He's been at Fortune magazine, as well as a PhD historian of technology. Super nerd, and we love nerds. Cryptocurrency is his specialties. And if you saw the Super Bowl, apparently the entire U.S. economy is cryptocurrency, AI, gambling, alcohol. So things are looking great. But we have David because I really wanted to talk about. You see, is that a cat or a dog? What do we got there?
Yeah, it's a cat. I might have to exile him, but for the moment, I'm just humoring him.
Cats are welcome. My cats show up all the time. I really wanted to talk to him about, and we talk about this a lot on the Left Hook, because I think people need to see who the supervillains are and how they work together. This part of this Epstein class. It is the Silicon Valley tech bros. It is the billionaires. It is crypto. It is deregulation. It is a way to disorder the world order. And as we saw in the latest Epstein batch, Epstein was intimately involved with this, and almost in a way, folks, he seeded the ground. He was like sharing these ideas with Peter Thiel and Ehud Barak, and also Steve Bannon. So welcome, David.
And Bobby Kotick of Activision.
Well, talk to us. Stealing the Future. Talk to us about the book, and we'll get into it.
Yeah, well, I guess maybe we'll back into the book because, the idea of the book is that this sort of techno fantasy has become a tool for imposing authoritarianism disguised as some kind of innovation. And, as you mentioned, Epstein was very into the tech world. And, a timeline that's kind of emerging is that he was very specifically into tech after his 2008 guilty plea for soliciting sex from a minor. He sort of looked at it as a new field where he was less exposed, less destroyed. His reputation was fresh. People like Peter Thiel didn't really know who Jeffrey Epstein was for a certain period of time. So he was able to go to Silicon Valley and, with his money, become an investor into things like, for example, Coinbase, where, we'll get into the complexities here are obviously immense. And I'm sure you're used to having I
appreciate it. But let's take it step by step. And I think people are following you right now. So Epstein gets convicted. First time ever, he has a smidgen of accountability where he, the sweetheart deal of all sweetheart deals, despite having nearly 36 women accuse him, Alex Acosta, who later ends up in the Trump administration, gives him a slap on the wrist, 13-month sentence where 6 out of the 7 days of the week, folks, he continues raping girls. So now he's a convicted, sex offender, and people are still doing business with him, but he wants to continue with his role in God knows all the horrible stuff he was doing without accountability. This is key. Without regulation, without oversight. And this is where I think crypto comes in. So talk to us about how that intersects with crypto.
Yeah. So it actually starts from, as you mentioned, he wants to keep going, right? He wants to launder his reputation. And he hires people to basically try and do SEO optimization to get search results about his conviction off of Google. And one of the ways he winds up trying to do this is in 2011 with something he called the Mind Shift conference, which takes place on Little St. James. It includes, it's sort of a disaster according to what we see in the emails, or at least he thinks so. But what happens in 2011 at Mind Shift is that he meets a guy named Brock Pierce. And Brock Pierce may or may not be a familiar name to people. He is originally a child actor. He appeared in, I think, the second Mighty Ducks movie. Yes. But far more importantly than that, he is part of an alleged abuse scandal in a late 90s startup called Digital Entertainment Network, which was going to be an early video streaming project where many of the young, possibly I think underage actors alleged that Pierce and other members of the leadership team sexually abused them. And so years later, years after this, he is talking about crypto in 2011 at the Mindshift conference. He's one of the only two people at that conference who Epstein, what appears to be Epstein in these emails, says is actually interesting. They go on to have a quite extensive relationship over many years. Brock Pierce, obviously, for some people will know him as the co-founder of Tether, which is a stable coin backed, by the way, by dollars in, oh God, I'm forgetting the name, but held by one of Trump's allies here in the United States. No. By the actual dollars are held by a traditional finance institution, and I'm forgetting exactly right now. But so they collaborate on many things. Brock teaches Epstein about cryptocurrency, and then Brock Pierce then becomes the intermediary for Epstein in about 2014 to make a $3 million donation to Coinbase. Now, Coinbase, among other things that people might be familiar with, obviously it's a crypto exchange, but it has over the years, under the leadership of CEO Brian Armstrong, made several moves that sort of indicate that it's aligned with the global far-right agenda that was part of what Epstein was trying to promote. An incident that people might not be that familiar with: in 2018, myself and several other reporters found that Coinbase had hired the sort of leftovers of a company called Hacking Team. These were Hacking Team. So these were spyware vendors who sold tools for tracking journalists to regimes in the third world, to fascist regimes, who we understand actually did use those in some cases to target and even kill journalists. And Coinbase hired those guys to handle customer data. Now, the backlash to this, led by myself and a few other people, was so extreme that they wound up letting go of those people, but they still, got to keep the money from the acquisition of their firm.
And I think what's also important, David, is they didn't care.
Until it came up. They claimed that they didn't see it in the background check, but obviously that's complete nonsense. So it wasn't a red flag for them internally until other people raised the alarm. The other incident that connects Coinbase to Epstein's politics, at least, is in 2020, in the wake of George Floyd's murder. Coinbase effectively imposed a gag order internally on its employees, saying that they weren't to discuss politics, but the politics in question there was almost certainly Black Lives Matter above all. And so about 5% of Coinbase staff left at that point. So this is all just to draw attention to alignment, if not actual collaboration, between these people and entities.
It was fantastic, and I really appreciate it, because we're dealing with, and I think a recurring theme, and I'm trying to learn more and more about crypto, is they libertarians, off the grid, away from the establishment, no oversight, lack of accountability, explorers, colonizers. We're doing things our own way.
In Brock Pierce's case, literally a colonizer. He is one of the people who has moved to Puerto Rico, established basically a colony there, and has, by the way, continued to face accusations of running a sexual extortion operation out of Puerto Rico.
And also, speaking about Puerto Rico, I just found out that one of these Paul brothers, Paul Logan, came out against Bad Bunny and said it was trash and sat with MAGA. People are like, bro, you live in Puerto Rico, and you deliberately live in Puerto Rico to escape accountability. Yeah.
And I mean, that was obviously, this also does connect to Balaji Srinivasan and the network state ideology, where they're also trying to form these sort of commercial colonies in various places around the world. The other thing to point out about Coinbase and sort of the global far right agenda, of course, is that Coinbase were behind a PAC called Stand with Crypto, or I guess there was a PAC and there was like an quote unquote astroturfed activist group called Stand with Crypto, and they funneled altogether about $131 million into the 2024 election, nominally to support sort of the pro crypto agenda, which Donald Trump was really signaling hard, but I think about 2/3 of that money went to Republican, and even more of it went to sort of center to center right Democratic campaigns, if you include that all together. But it was primarily supporting a conservative right wing agenda through that Coinbase leadership.
But I think it's important. At the end of the day, money is money, and the color the color green trumps all other colors. And a lot of Democrats were in this, liberals were in this. There was like, hey, money's to be made. I'm from the Bay Area originally, David, and I remember. Let's just keep it. Let's be honest. Let's keep it 100. The Obama administrations, the Biden administrations, when there were opportunities to regulate or curtail or maybe heed the warnings of the emergence of these tech bros, like, no, this is fantastic, it's great for the economy, it's great for freedom, and it's great for information. They were also part and parcel responsible for creating this monster. Is that me being too unfair?
Well, I mean, I personally, my take is that there was. I'm not going to judge Obama. I'm frankly like, I know the business more than the politics. But on the business side,
they were kind of like, oh, pie in the sky.
Yeah, pie in the sky, exactly. I mean, that's kind of the theme of the book. You're stealing the future by lying about what you're able to accomplish. We saw hilariously Elon Musk today say, "Oh, we're not going to Mars anymore. We're just going to go to the moon again."
Oh, I didn't hear that. Oh, he's
He's back. He's off Mars now. So after 15 years, he's made 5 years worth of progress. But anyway, this is the point, right? Like, you get these big lies, and they are big lies in a couple of senses. But we also saw, one of the things that came out of the Epstein dump was that in 2015, Mark Zuckerberg was having a clandestine dinner with Epstein. And so all of these people, I mean, Elon and Mark Zuckerberg in particular, sort of posed as these kind of, I mean, liberal, I think, is the right word. I mean, even the pose was quite centrist and technocratic, but I think they posed as that and then have very much swung right publicly, obviously, over the last 5 years when
Dave,
it became more
some
convenient.
People are saying that your microphone is a bit too loud for them and it's popping. It's fine for me, even though it's a little bit loud, but just a few people saying your mic is a bit it's popping. How about now?
I'm also just loud. So let me actually do something real quick. I'm seeing you are showing.
That's much better. I think that's much better.
Yeah, so I'm just taking the headphones off. So
how's that, guys? I think that's better, right? It's not popping as much. Give me 1 second. Say something. Say crypto 1 2 3.
Crypto 1 2 3. Somebody's gonna clip this.
No. Dave. Okay. All right. Good. People say it's better. I'll get to Sam, but before we get to Sam, I'm talking about the criminal aspect. Let me put it this way: the way crypto is allowed, it lends itself to be used by some of the worst people for lack of accountability, lack of oversight. Talk to us about Ross Ulbricht and Silk Road.
Well, so Ross, I'm actually not familiar with him coming up in the current round of stuff. I will say, Ross was one of the pardons, right? Like, he got a Trump pardon.
One of the first ones.
It does confuse the issue. Frankly, we're keeping it 100 here. I am sort of on the fence about Ross specifically. I'm somewhat sympathetic to some of the arguments there. Obviously, he committed serious crimes, and whether or not he deserves a pardon, I think separated from the Trump issue is a question for me still. But obviously, there are plenty of people who have clearly done bad things that have gotten those pardons. But on the use of crypto for criminality, I actually want to highlight another thing that has emerged completely brand new out of the latest tranche of Epstein documents, which is the sort of new revelations about a woman named Masha Prusakova, who we've heard a little bit about, I think, previously, but very little. And now we're realizing, based on this next tranche, that she was effectively a second Ghislaine Maxwell. She's a 2006 Olympic snowboarder who might have met Epstein at the 2006 Olympics. And we have extensive records of her going back to about that time, actively recruiting women and sort of corresponding with Epstein. I just saw that it's not totally clear that it's her, but she appears to have written a draft of a sexual contract that she intended for Epstein to use with other victims. Epstein paid for her law school to UC Berkeley. I bring her up because I interacted with Masha Prusakova as well as Masha Drakova, who is now known as Masha Boucher, in 2019 when I was investigating what I thought was a ring of fake crypto PR operations. They were running something called Crypto PR Lab and another one called M&A PR. They were using writers who were posing as journalists, paying them behind the scenes for positive coverage of various crypto projects. And this is where the real criminality happens in crypto, is with these like fake investments, right? So these were and Masha Drakova also directly linked to Epstein. She, starting in 2017, was the main PR agent laundering his reputation, or attempting to. And we've identified specific writers that that worked for them.
And also, David, if I may say, Masha Drakova also was a Putinista in the Putin youth movement. Literally photographed with Putin, goes from Russia, ends up in New York, is a publicist for Epstein, is connected to Silicon Valley, I think Thiel and Silicon Valley through Epstein, then ends up in the Bay Area.
Yeah, and makes investments, by the way, into Sam Altman's WorldCoin, which is one of the most insanely evil things in crypto. But I think that like Drakova and her sort of semi-partner, what I actually saw a writer in their network who in 2018 wrote a piece about how great, 2017, wrote a piece about how great Jeffrey Epstein's support for science was because Trump was cutting funding. So they were doing this reputation laundering for him while also, at the very least, acting as accessories for likely crypto frauds.
And also, we mentioned, I think her name was Masha Drakova, right? The publicist for Epstein, who then ends up in the Bay Area, who then ends up, investing in all these startups. Is that in the latest tranche of the Epstein files, there is the FBI. The FBI has an interview with a confidential informant that alleges that Masha was sent by Russia to steal U.S. technology.
Yes, and I'm not surprised to hear that. And I should point out that, at least publicly, her claim is that she is a dissident now, that there's a documentary called Putin's Kiss that is about her and shows supposedly her progress into sort of rejecting Putin based on abuse of journalists. But to be perfectly blunt, there's some very good reasons to believe that was effectively a sheep dip operation. She was being extricated from Russia to come to the U.S. with kind of a clean slate. I would also add, and this is kind of inside baseball perhaps for some crypto people, but the other connection here is that Masha Prusakova also worked for a website called Cointelegraph, according to one of my sources. Cointelegraph is run by a sort of unknown Russian who also claims to be a dissident, but has also been a huge vector for crypto pump and dumps over the years. So here again, we have this like crypto crime, and a lot of this was actually taking place in the sort of 2018 to 2019 period, where there were these things called initial coin offerings, which were effectively unregistered securities, and they were very widely used and abused in a sort of. There was a bit of a period before it was totally clear that these would be criminally prosecuted. So this was where a lot of that was going. I mean, there's no evidence at this point to directly link Epstein to those frauds, but it would not be at all surprising if he was, somehow using that as means of money laundering. Another one of the connections to Brock Pierce, by the way, when we're talking about money and money laundering, Pierce got his start dealing secondhand in currencies and items from World of Warcraft and other online games, which we at least have a general understanding were very useful at that time, both for money laundering and for communication that was unmonitored.
And also what we know now from the latest Epstein tranche is the person who was extremely interested in how communications, culture, and digital money was being used in these online games, right? World of Warcraft.
And this was the Bobby Kotick thing.
Epstein and Steve Bannon.
Yeah. Yeah. And Steve Bannon actually worked at a company with Brock Pierce
Yep.
before Trump, before any of that. He was part of this world dealing in digital currency. Yesterday, I think we saw a lot of attention on these Bobby Kotick emails where Kotick and Epstein, I don't remember the details, but generally we're talking about online transactions and online currency in games as a way to effectively indoctrinate children into spending money, which is really fun. And so that's another angle here, that this entire like digital economy was something that he was interested in from a sort of social engineering standpoint, I suppose, which is one of Epstein's more I mean, they're all disturbing, but one of his other disturbing interests.
Yeah, folks, just connecting the dots, right? I know there's a lot. So you got this online community, you got gaming. Gaming, there's a lot of women in gaming. I don't want to, there's a lot of women, but often it is seen as a male-dominated, if you will, a space. Especially with online gaming, you have online universe. Within online universe, people spend an obscene amount of time and money in these open games like World of Warcraft. You invest, you level up, you build a community. Oftentimes there's anonymity unless you don't have to share your face, your name.
Right.
It's also ripe for exploitation, for misogyny, for racism, for abuse. In these worlds, right, you're developing stuff like, my kids do it all the time with Fortnite and Roblox, right? Like Roblox money. I could buy this. I could do that. So you're like,
watch out with those kids in Roblox, man. That's a bit of a problem sometimes.
I got them out. I got them out of it. But it's like, this digital currency in this game actually has real life value.
Yeah.
Also, culturally, you have some racists and misogynists. Yeah. This can be used and exploited. So Steve Bannon's in it. Epstein gets interested in it, right? Then you're seeing at the same time crypto. Another thing that we can use, a toy for us, right?
Yeah. And I haven't seen the clear connections yet, but apparently I'm seeing some people talk about more signs that Bannon and perhaps Epstein were behind Gamergate, or at least had obviously they had influence.
Talk to us about Gamergate. For people who don't know, and some of our chat members, they get it. And I was about to go to Gamergate too. Can you just now connect this to Gamergate? Because a lot of people hear it, they don't know.
Yeah.
Because I think it's very integral to understand how that connects to where we are.
Yeah, it's so wild, because I think probably you and myself, paying attention to this, the kind of rise of the right over the years, and at this point, frankly, I feel like a boiled frog, because I've been watching this stuff for a decade and never really thought it would happen like this. But the Gamergate was, I think, arguably the coming out party for the global far right in the 21st century. Even though it was sort of framed in this very narrow way about being about like games journalism, at the core of it was hatred of women, and hatred of women who created games, participated in games, reviewed games, and they, you have to give them credit. They did a good job of creating this very narrow slice of the world where they could say some really extreme things because of this one particular person who was engaged in. There was some controversy around somebody who supposedly was in a relationship with somebody whose game they were reviewing. It doesn't matter. It was all a pretext for, Groypers. Those guys came and really used Gamergate as the platform for, it folded up into Pizzagate and QAnon, and it all came out of that. So, that's folks, my very big picture.
Gamergate really is this type of the dredges of online freaks, the type of stuff you would never say publicly, all the misogyny, all the hate, and then the racism, then translated into real world, going against a female gamer and journalist, right? Death threats and doxing. Right. And then it comes out from the swamps of the online 4chan. And guess who wants to meet, and did meet, I think, the creator of 4chan, Epstein. And who was
Moot, right?
Yep. Can you tell him about that? That what we just found out?
This I'm not so read in on, but we do now know. And I mean, to be clear, I think that these are people who would have been really bad news regardless of whether Epstein was involved at all. These are outright fascists, like Nazis. But yeah, we do understand that Moot had some kind of interaction with Epstein, and I believe, and again, I'm sorry, don't quote me on this. This is not my expertise, but I believe that Moot had actually shut down the R poll section of 4chan, met Epstein, had some kind of conversation, and then reopened our poll, which our poll is, like Gamergate itself, a hive of scum and villainy, and really like the
Why
center.
disrespect Mos Eisley like that?
Yeah. Apologies.
The Cantina actually had some good characters, sir.
Seriously, at least interesting, because these are like the boring Nazis too. But that we don't really know. At least I don't really know the nuances of that interaction. But it definitely does seem to have had some kind of impact on Moot's thinking about reopening poll.
And folks, this is why, I know it sounds wild, but it's connected. You have Epstein meeting with Bannon. You got Epstein either seeding and or being seeded with these ideas. Epstein learning how he can be more opaque, more, if you will, under the radar, no accountability. Okay, 4chan. Okay, crypto. Okay, online gaming. The person who was already exploring this was Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon then goes and becomes the chief advisor of Donald Trump. Steve Bannon said that Viktor Orban was Trump before Trump, and he was looking for his avatar for his plot, and his plot is a new world order for white supremacy. For Epstein, I think he's looking for his new world order where he can continue his pedophile ring without accountability. And then you got the techno-fascists, who we'll bring in a second. So all of this is connected, and this is just, David, for the people who are in the weeds, right? So they meet these people. 4chan becomes the hub of Gamergate. Gamergate is this bullshit conspiracy / attack on female journalists. It galvanizes a lot of these incels who then become part and parcel of the right-wing MAGA movement. Gamergate then gives birth to Pizzagate. Pizzagate is the origin of the deep state, where the left is a bunch of pedophiles, which led to, literally in 2016, a Republican voter with a gun right here 20 minutes from where I live, going to this pizza parlor that I've been at. Yeah, and he was not crazy. He's like, I'm here to free the kids. I'm like, what are you talking about? The kids who are trapped underneath the basement by Hillary Clinton. And like, sir, this is a pizza parlor. And then that led to, wait for it, QAnon, that the Republican Party embraced. And now we know, it seems, and again, we'll find out more information, that almost all of this was a psyop, David, created by the people who are actually doing the raping and part of the cabal, but projecting it onto the rest of us.
Yeah, and I mean, we saw that in general terms. We saw that in the emails between Epstein and Peter Thiel, where they're both kind of like, oh, yay, everything is collapsing, and maybe we can nudge it a little bit, and then things will be cheaper to buy. I do want to pick up on one thing that you said there about sort of Epstein's interest in moving without being seen and clandestine activities. And that's particularly interesting because of the cryptocurrency angle. We have a few emails between him and a guy whose name I'm not going to get exactly right, but who was his personal hacker. And they're talking about Bitcoin. And one of the weird one that Epstein was really interested in was there are discussions of them trying to create a Sharia compliant Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, which is just a strange little canard. Most cryptos are not interest bearing, and anyway. But the one that's more curious even than that is, at a certain point, he starts discussing wanting to remove the anonymity from Bitcoin. And this is about 2014. And what's interesting about that is that we now know, and this actually gets back to Ross Ulbricht as well, by the way, what we now know is that Bitcoin isn't really anonymous. Bitcoin is what we call pseudonymous, which means you have an address that has a number and doesn't have a name associated with it. But over time, if you are active using Bitcoin, there are firms, one of them is called Chainalysis, which is a federal contractor. They're very good at tracing the connections between all these Bitcoin wallets and kind of triangulating to figure out the identity of the actual users. So what intrigues me about this is it suggests that maybe Jeffrey Epstein in 2014 had the mistaken idea that crypto was anonymous, when in fact it turns out it's very traceable. And we don't know anything about this, I'm purely speculating here, but that suggests that Epstein might have possibly used Bitcoin in ways based on his mistaken belief that it was anonymous. And those records are still out there. So there is a possibility that we could go back and find Jeffrey Epstein on the Bitcoin blockchain now. It
creates a ledger, right?
Yes, it's a permanent ledger that still exists going back to 2014, and I think that it's a long shot, and I'm purely speculating, but he could be on there. We could have Epstein activity. We do know he one of the other things he did with Brock Pierce is I think around 2013 was thinking about buying Mt. Gox, which was a very early Bitcoin exchange that later collapsed. And so he also later made investments into a company called Blockstream that's quite involved in Bitcoin development. Two of the co-founders of Blockstream, one named Adam Back, at least according to the emails, met Epstein. And Adam Back, by the way, is on the list of people who have been considered candidates to have been Satoshi Nakamoto, the unknown creator of Bitcoin. Unlikely, but Adam Back is on the list. And the other co-founder of Blockstream also actively emailed with Epstein. And so these are people who, at the very least, he was interested in as people creating and in very influential positions in crypto.
This is just my take. I know people who do crypto, very good people. Overwhelmingly, I have never trusted it. Overwhelmingly, I see no benefit it brings to society. Overwhelmingly, I see it as a tool that can be and has been easily exploited. And I believe this bubble will burst, especially
well, I think it's in the process, or at least it's at least deflated quite a bit if you haven't looked in the last few days.
Yeah, and especially with AI, and you've seen. We'll talk about that in a second because I thought that bubble burst was coming. It might happen sooner, as you said, you said something, stealing the future. These people all overpromised, and they're not going to deliver. I want to get to,
and AI is a huge one. I would love to talk about that, but we'll put a pin in it.
Yeah, we'll put a pin in it for right now. But stealing the future, right? Crypto, all this bullshit, right? We're seeing used and abused by people who want to escape accountability. We're seeing it used and abused by people who want to maximize their wealth. We're seeing it used and abused by people who want to do money laundering, sex trafficking, child trafficking, Epstein, disrupt the world order, right? How does Sam Bankman-Fried enter into this conversation?
Yeah. So before I get to Sam specifically, I do want to talk about one aspect of this sort of tech hype cycle, because key to all of this is not just making big promises, but being able to financialize those big promises, being able to create an asset that people can buy that then winds up transferring wealth to you. And, Sam Bankman-Fried, I think, is useful exactly because he was bad at it. He blew up. But who's really good at it? Elon Musk. Elon Musk has been promising a trip to Mars for 15 years. He's been promising self-driving cars for at least 10 years, and in fact, selling a self-driving package for about 8 years. And this is all fed into the price of Tesla stock, which is the main source, or one of the main sources, along with SpaceX, of his huge wealth. And also, by the way, you can look at somebody like Adam Newman of WeWork. These people all cash out. That's what's crucial. They all have this thing that symbolizes their future potential. In Sam Bankman-Fried's case, it was a token called FTT that acted much like FTX stock and that he used as collateral for loans, and those lenders got blown up.
Can you tell people what happened to all those people and where Sam is right now?
Yeah. Okay. So we've done there's the financialization, but how did it happen with Sam? Well, there's a lot of layers to it. It's weirdly complex for something so simple. The
only reason I'm asking, David, is I think it gives us a microcosm or a sneak preview of what I think we will witness with some of these individuals. But continue.
Yeah. So the actual fraud is very high level, extremely stupid and simple. Sam Bankman-Fried took all of his customers' money, and I mean all of it. There was like very little left at the end. And he, with a logic that is genuinely hard to understand, no matter how long you think about it, he took these customer deposits that are short-term deposits, right? He's a custodian as a crypto exchange. You're supposed to be able to pull that money out anytime. You're supposed to be able to trade it, sell it. I mean, these are active traders. Regardless of what you think about cryptocurrency, it is an active asset market where people are doing real activities that are business. And he took their money and put the money into a bunch of illiquid venture capital investments, along with bribes to Chinese officials, laundered money going into super PACs run by his parents and brother, houses in the Bahamas for his parents, a $5 million gift to Stanford funneled through his dad, who curried favor with the administration using that stolen money. All of this stuff happened. But the bulk of it went to venture capital investments, which is insane if you know anything about finance, because the turnaround for a venture capital firm, if you get a liquidity event, optimistically, you're looking at 3 to 5 years. But these deposits were people who might want to take their money out tomorrow. And so this is one of the things that I talk about in the book at quite a bit of length is Sam Bankman-Fried posed, and frankly, again, there's an Elon Musk comparison to be made here. In public, he posed as this kind of benevolent genius. His intelligence was very much like the selling point.
There you go.
But if you look at his activities, his actual decisions, whether in terms of the structure of this fraud, which was always going to fail, whether you look at his responses immediately after the collapse, which against his lawyer's advice, he went on 100 podcasts and TV shows and lied again and again in a way that hamstrung his defense.
And he looked like a complete moron and a freak, by the way.
He is a complete moron. That's the point I'm working up to, is that if you look at his actual behavior, he's very stupid.
Yes.
This includes, by the way, a very funny one from early last year, which there are some deeper lessons to be learned here. Sam Bankman-Fried obviously wants a pardon from Donald Trump because he has kind of pivoted now from being like, I'm the biggest Democratic donor of all time, to saying, I love Elon Musk. I love the chainsaw. That's one of the things he said. But he said this stuff most recently to Tucker Carlson in an unsanctioned interview that he gave using like a prison iPad that's meant to talk to family. That got him transferred from jail in Brooklyn, where he was preparing for his quote unquote appeal, which is dead and done for. But he's gotten punished twice now for giving these unsanctioned interviews because he doesn't think the rules apply to him, which winds up making you look like a fool.
Shocking.
Yeah.
And also, David, the reason why, and there's another aspect of this, because I remember this man, clearly an idiot, what I've seen, spastic, a fool, moron, can't make eye contact, because of his wealth, because of his wealthy parents, because he was situated in this big club, to quote George Carlin. These people fast-tracked him, right? And it was complicity of this club that elevated this moron, that allowed this story of his alleged genius and wealth. And then all these people who should have known better got conned. It almost reminds me of Theranos. Like, clearly this lady is lying, but they were enamored by her. And then one rich old horny fart said something, and he told another horny fart, and then they elevated her and propped her up. And then she got all the books. And it reminds me a lot of Elon Musk, because I've been told, David, and I remember for 10 years, genius, brilliant. And I remember just 3 years ago, I said on Twitter, this man is a moron. And I remember even some of my friends said, come on, Waj, you might not like his politics, but clearly he's brilliant. I'm like, nope, not convinced he's brilliant. Like, show me his brilliance. Yeah. And everything we've seen of his behavior, David, he does not look smart to me.
Yeah. And I want to plug into a very specific thing. And by the way, I'm seeing some comments. This is indeed my book, Stealing the Future, Sam Bankman-Fried, Elite Fraud, and the Cult of Technopia. One of the points that I get to in the book is that there is this disconnect between like, I'm a genius and, oh, I act like an idiot. It's actually quite rooted in eugenics, which again, we get back to Jeffrey Epstein.
And we talk about this a lot on Left to Continue. Please, it's very important.
These people love IQ. They love taking a test and then having a number that supposedly attests to their unitary intelligence, that I am smart, therefore everything I do is great and perfect, regardless of the outcomes. And this is particularly important because now we're going to get into, the really deeper stuff behind Sam Bankman-Fried, which is two strains of thought, well, many strains of thought, but three, I guess, are the important ones: effective altruism, rationalism, which, by the way, specifically funded and fostered by Peter Thiel, who supported a guy named Eliezer Yudkowsky. And then the third one is long-termism, which this is the really, truly toxic. I mean, rationalism is bullshit. EA is a tissue paper. Long-termism is evil. Long-termism is this idea that also Elon Musk ascribes to, that human beings, not only that human beings are going to colonize the stars, but, and this is crucial, and this is Will MacAskill, an Oxford professor who was disgraced in SBF's collapse. Will MacAskill argues that presently living humans are ethically equivalent to theoretical future humans. And I don't mean ethically equivalent in the sense that killing somebody now is just as bad as killing somebody in the future. I mean, literally, there is no sense of time in this ethics that if you do something today that results in quote unquote saving millions of lives in the future, then that's actually worth sacrificing lives in the present.
Yeah, genocidal.
Because genocidal, also utilitarian. This is a key word to keep an eye on. They're all about, trade-offs, and basically there's no belief in the human soul or in the fundamental value of human life. It's all sort of maximizing in this very mathematical way that again gets back to making things tradable, making things investable, turning everything, including human beings, into an asset that can be managed. And so, yes, I saw some people.
Empathy is a weakness. We need to prioritize useful people. These are all language of Elon Musk.
Yes. And I mean, the empathy thing is really crazy. I mean, you see, Gurwinder Bogle, I think, is one of these guys who has written about how empathy is evil. I mean, it's really right out in the open what they're trying to give everybody an excuse for, which is genocide.
And so, Omar, we got a smart crowd. Curtis Yarvin, who is the moron basement philosopher of, wait for it, Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel funded him, introduced him to, wait for it, J.D. Vance and the Broligarchy. Curtis Yarvin, as we talked about often just yesterday on the show, believes democracy is incompatible with capitalism, believes that people who are not useful should be turned into basically a Soylent Green or biofuel, right?
Absolutely. Literally biofuels, I think he said at one point.
Yeah, and then I think what in his humane treatment is the people who are autistic or disabled will put them in a room and put a virtual reality set on them so they can live the rest of their lives in basically perpetual coma. And this is the guy that Peter Thiel funds his ideas, has proliferated this freak's ideas throughout the Silicon Valley. And guess who follows him, folks? J.D. Vance.
And by the way, to interrupt just briefly, Yarvin made most of his money through a fake startup where he, created technology that's not very useful. I mean, somebody in the comments is going to help me. I'm having a brain fart on the actual name of the company, but he, had a startup that got a high valuation, partly based on investments from Peter Thiel, cashed out. It actually turned into nothing. So this is the way it always works.
And this is where I want to bring in AI, because part and parcel of this, and I'm shamelessly promoting your book, David. People love you. This is David Morris. He reached out to me, and then sorry that I didn't know about you. And then he, I saw his book. He sent me his book. I'm like, oh, David's a guy, and he's super nerd, and we love nerds here. And not only does he do the deep dive, but he also connects the dots for us, for the people who don't know, because I know it's a lot for folks. And I know I'm reading the comment section, people are like, this sounds like bad science fiction. Exactly. It's terrible science fiction in the hands of malcontent, deeply disturbed boys with daddy issues who have gone more power and money they know what to do with, and all the power and the money still makes them miserable. And if it's given a choice between sharing the wealth with the rest of us and burning down Earth, they'll explode Earth. But this is where AI comes in, and they want to live forever through transhumanism. They want to infuse themselves with AI. They believe AI will replace workers. They believe AI will create their private military force that will protect them from us humans who will revolt one day. They've gone all in on AI. And I believe, David, you're the expert. They have overpromised on AI. And now we are seeing in real time the poison fruits of that overpromise and overinvestment. My take. You're the expert.
Yeah. No, I mean, absolutely. And for some very really obvious reasons. It's actually infuriating as somebody who understands computer science fairly well to watch Sam Altman say that a large language model like ChatGPT is going to find new cures for cancer, which is literally mathematically impossible. You'll look at, if people are curious about this, I would strongly recommend you could check out the work of Gary Marcus, who's an actual AI expert who has been sounding the alarm on this for about 4 or 5 years now. But to put it in very simple terms, what Sam Altman has argued for, Sam Altman is not a computer scientist. He's not an AI expert. He's a manager essentially. But he has gone 100% on this idea that you can take large language models, ChatGPT, which have, ingested terabytes of text and pictures, and basically all of their responses are derived from processing these existing texts and images. But he's 100% gone with, if we give them enough human stuff that has already been created, they will become actually intelligent and achieve AGI, artificial general intelligence, which these long-termists sort of fundamental to their worldview is that AGI will be like God. It will, in fact, replace God in their cosmology. They believe that when you create an AGI and you do it correctly, it will superpower all of humanity. Crucially, it will solve climate change, which is why, for example, in all of the effective altruism, you never heard Sam Bankman-Fried talk about climate change. This is not a concern for them,
But
conveniently
they don't
enough.
care. They don't care.
No, they think it's going to be fixed by the God AI. Yeah.
I think that's very important, folks. I think it's very important for people to understand how these people think. And the reason is they're all over the Epstein files. They're part of the big club. Zuckerberg, Thiel, Musk had a wild party with Epstein. It's like it's the Bond supervillain plot. And I know this sounds crazy. This is why I spend so much time on the left hook, is these are the people with their billions buying up elections here and abroad. These are the people who are, if you looked at the Super Bowl, for the 3,300 people joining us, I'm talking to David, who's the author of Stealing the Future, Sam Bankman-Fried,
do it again.
Cult of Utopia, right there. It's a great book. These are the people, folks, who are the masters of industry, right? The titans of industry. The Super Bowl, folks, every single commercial was AI, crypto, Ozempic, gambling, and like alcohol. And the end game for these people is they're not interested in saving us. All their money, they could use it to save us. They don't want to save us. They want to bring down the world order, replace it with, we're going to talk about it, a techno-fascist utopia. They don't care about climate change or anything. They're like, oh, we're done. They want to use eugenics and their sperm to repopulate humanity in their image abroad. And by abroad, I'm not talking about Europe. I'm talking about Mars. But apparently David told me now Elon Musk said, oh, we can't do Mars. Apparently the moon.
We're just going to do the moon. Yeah. Because, and you know why? It's because SpaceX is going to IPO soon. And so if you keep talking about Mars, that's actually securities fraud at this point. So he has to pull it back. So I want to, I think we'll like the techno-fascist thing. To sort of ease into that, I want to talk about sort of a corollary to a lot of the AI, and especially like the generative AI and the fact that these LLMs are now taking over universities and infiltrating classrooms, because especially Peter Thiel, a very specific Peter Thiel agenda, starting from when he wrote The Diversity Myth at Stanford back in the 90s, has been to delegitimize.
Can I say Peter Thiel and David Sachs?
Yeah, and David Sachs. Yes.
Can you tell people where David Sachs is right now in the Trump administration?
He's the crypto czar and the AI czar. I think he's both. So again, we get to the connection between eugenics and AI, which, by the way, I'm going to start pitching a book on that. If anybody in the audience wants a book on eugenics and AI, it's coming. But the point for Peter Thiel, or at least a big part of Peter Thiel's observable agenda, is delegitimizing, defunding, and making education culturally less appealing. This entire don't go to college thing, learn to code, this is all a fucking op, man. What you're learning in college is the things that the AI doesn't know. It's the things about, critical thinking and how to analyze the world in a way that doesn't reduce to mathematics. If you reduce everything to mathematics, if all you are is an engineer, then you wind up Sam Bankman-Fried and you're a fucking idiot. But if you're an idiot, that's really useful for the people who want to control you. So I want to really highlight that as like an underlying, and also with journalism, right? You look at Peter Thiel targeting Gawker. We have emails now from between Thiel and Epstein, where Epstein is going, I would have totally supported your Gawker attack. A big part of their agenda is to go against journalism because they don't want to have Me Too continue to have traction. They're terrified of that. And so AI fits into this destruction of knowledge. AI is being sold as a new way to access knowledge. It's the opposite. It's a way to stop you from thinking and to limit what you can possibly know to information that already exists. Because you don't learn how to create new knowledge using AI. You just learn to regurgitate stuff that people have already thought.
No, and I think that's a very profound analysis, and I appreciate you sharing that, because they want to reduce us to just numbers and digits and Soylent Green. And what the humanities do is literally teach you to be human, empathy, stories, narrative, thought, history. But if you
And
get
that
rid of
everybody is unique and that each person has a value. That's the most dangerous idea for them, is that each person has value.
each person has value, stories matter, cultures matter, right? People are capable of rising up against tyrants and the regime, accountability, empathy, humanity. It explains why, folks, they are the way they are. These are the world's worst people. I kept you for longer than I thought, but it's been a fantastic conversation. There's nearly 3,500 people watching. Folks, this is David. First time. David Morris is a technology expert, a reporter, a journalist. He has a fantastic book. Show the book, Stealing the Future.
Do it one more time. Thank you for letting me do this so shamelessly.
Shameless.
Yeah.
I'm being
Please
shameless
check it out.
for you. The end game, the techno-fascist end game. Suppose they get their druthers. Everything works. We sit back. We're in our soma. We're distracted. Culture wars. We're exhausted. We're drained. We're sick. We don't pay attention. What's the end game?
Well, let's be clear. The end game is not what they say. I think we are living in the end game right now, right? The goal is not to get to Mars. The goal is not to create AI. The goal is not to create Optimus robots. The goal is not even to create self-driving cars. The goal is just to accumulate as much wealth as possible before what they see as the end of the world, which they're the ones creating the end of the world. But I mean, that's really, you have to ignore the sci-fi. That is not something that any of them actually believe. I mean, Sam Bankman-Fried, in a weird way, that's one of the sort of interesting things about his story, is that he sort of put a new twist on a lot of this, because people might or might not remember this, but sort of infamously in an interview with Matt Levine on Bloomberg, Sam kind of admitted that he didn't really believe in crypto. His entire thing was, this is just an asset that I can trade and I'm going to make money. He, in some ways, he's the final boss in all of this in a certain way, because he admitted in some sense to his cynicism, but then with effective altruism, you can turn around and say, oh, no. I want to make all this money. I want to become a billionaire because I'm the one who's going to make things better. And this is where you do get to the fascism and the authoritarianism, which is, even Elon Musk, he's selling this dream based on what he can do. There's no democracy in any of this. There's no discussion of how we're going to allocate these resources because they're his. He's the one who has all the money. And so we just don't even have a discussion where we can actually interact and collaborate in any way. We're just kind of hopeful that Elon Musk is going to create the future that he's promising. And obviously he's not. He's going to build himself a bunker and go get robots to jack him off. I'm sorry.
No, why do you think sorry? That's probably what's going to happen. And then he's probably going to hate himself when he realizes one of the robots is a trans robot. And then he's going to destroy the robots that he helped create. Fantastic conversation. Well, one last question, David. Look, this is what I'm just looking. I'm a simple English major. What do I know? I'm useless according to Elon Musk and Sam Bankman-Fried. I'm an unfrozen caveman lawyer as well. But I'm old enough to remember that the same architects of the 2008 recession, we were told they're too big to fail. And my constant Paul Revere ringing the bell is that if you look at the U.S. economy, it seems to be bolstered up on this super injection into AI. And if they deliver on their promise, we're effed, because AI literally replaces so many jobs. And I think it'll be absolutely cataclysmic for human beings and the economy. So if they succeed, we're effed. If they don't succeed, and I don't think they will, because I think they've overpromised and overinvested, and I think this bubble is going to burst, then it's going to be a catastrophic, well, they're too big to fail. And now, look, they're so tied to the U.S. government, and they're so tied to the public sector and the private sector, we're going to have to bail them out. Yeah. What's your prediction?
Well, I think there's sort of two things here. I think you're absolutely right. And for very specific observable reasons, a bailout is likely just because of the ties between J.D. Vance and Peter Thiel, right? Peter Thiel, obviously a co-founder and owner of Palantir, who, again, they're a government contractor, quote unquote. I mean, who knows how effective any of this stuff actually really is. Palantir is supposedly being used by ICE to identify targets for raids and deportations, but that has actually led to no-knock raids on U.S. citizens. So that's the product of Palantir's work. Again, we see technology promising more than it can deliver. Even when you're literally doing fascism, it's not working. So all of that aside, The difference here between, now and 2008, though, is that, OpenAI is kind of the biggest culprit here in terms of overinflation. They've made all of these deals with, NVIDIA and especially Oracle to do data center build outs. All of this, again, these data centers are the scaling that I was talking about, based on this premise that LLMs, if you just make them big enough, they're going to become actually intelligent. It's all nonsense. And you're already seeing, but the difference, to put the difference, OpenAI is not a public company. They are deeply tied to Oracle, a little bit less so, but still pretty deeply to Microsoft. Last week, I believe we saw Jensen Huang from NVIDIA start to really back off from what had originally been, I think, a $100 billion commitment from NVIDIA to invest in OpenAI. And you actually saw Oracle stock tank pretty hard when Jensen made those comments, because I think
Oracle laid off all those people last week.
Oh, I missed that part. But
Oracle. So last week, Oracle fires thousands of workers to free up money to build these AI data centers because banks weren't investing in it.
Yeah. I mean, okay, I guess if we're swearing here, Oracle is fucked. They are going down the tubes. David Ellison is going to be left owning Paramount and CBS with like no capital behind him. He's going to have to fire Barry Weiss so they actually start making money again. This is all going to happen. Maybe not, in 5 years, but in, a few. And so, but again, the difference is in 2008, the banks were just genuinely systemic. There's obviously a huge amount of debate about like the lack of prosecutions afterwards. But as somebody who understands the kind of financial guts of things, it is with a heavy heart that I must say that the TARP bailouts and other things were probably the right decision. That's not the case here. OpenAI, not a publicly listed company. They're not systemic at all. There is absolutely no excuse for a bailout. I mean, Palantir didn't exist like 10 years ago. So I don't even understand why they would be considered these agencies have been doing their work without that help. So
let them burn. Let them burn.
For corruption, out of corruption, which the Trump administration has obviously had no compunctions about open corruption. And so, the bailouts, if we don't get a House turnover and a Senate turnover before those have to happen, then who knows what will be pushed through. And they're definitely possible.
And the reason why, folks, I want us to all be informed about this, all of us. And I'll let David go. Thank you so much, David. It's fantastic. Come back anytime, especially if you want to talk about something or there's something that I missed. 30,000, by the way, layoffs soon at Oracle.
Yeah. Can I just make one quick plug before I go?
Yeah. No,
I'm sure.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, just to make sure everybody knows, I have my own Substack, and tomorrow I will be publishing something on the Epstein crypto Masha Prusakova connection. It's davidzmorris.substack.com. davidzmorris.substack.com.
David Z. Morris, 2 R's, 2 S's?
Morris, yeah.
At Substack?
At substack.com. Yeah. I haven't done the fancy work of getting a custom domain yet, but my publication is called Dark Markets, so you can look for that.
Yeah, everyone who's watched right now, nearly 3,600 people, and I'm going to put this up later. I know it's it's been a rolling conversation, folks. It's been 2 hours. I'll chop it up later. Just give me some time. The first 30 minutes with Prem Talker of Zeteo, really fantastic conversation about Epstein's ties to Israel and specifically Ehud Barak. The second was Ro Khanna came on, talking about the fresh news that he named the 6 of the people who the DOJ scrubbed. He openly calls it a Trump administration cover-up with what's happening with Epstein. I also asked him about accountability. And then we've had David on for the past hour, making the connections as best we can. And I really recommend, folks, what I was saying is really spend time with this. I know it's a lot, but just spend a little bit of time with it because you can't escape this. This is the future. These guys are going to F up. When they F up, I guarantee you, if we don't raise hell, Democrats will join Republicans in bailing them out. I want to give you one example. A month and a half ago, Gavin Newsom was given a softball down the middle. He was asked, will you, tax billionaires, which is wildly popular across the board. Gavin Newsom said, they're part of the big tent. I'm from California. A lot of these billionaires, they give money to both sides. Right now, AI, I'm with you, man. I think this Sam Altman OpenAI thing is going to F us over. Listen to Democrats. They're like, well, we need AI, Hakeem Jeffries and all these people. You put pressure on them, they can change. When it comes to ICE, they're changing. When it comes to accountability, they're changing. When it comes to taxing the billionaires, they're changing. So you need to be informed for what's about to hit us in about a year or two. Maybe sooner, David. They will F up. And we have to make sure that the Democrats, if indeed we have free and fair elections, they don't bail these people out. They do not need to be bailed out. How has crypto helped you? How has AI helped you? Let these mother effers fail, and not just fail, investigate them and have hearings, because these people are involved in some shady shit. David, thank you so much. Please.
Thanks for having me. Thanks a ton.
Promote yourself. Again, last time. Who
yeah,
are you?
So,
the book.
Yeah, so it's Stealing the Future. This is a full account of the Sam Bankman-Fried trial. By the way, I have to get in one last dig at my archenemy, Michael Lewis, who wrote a terrible book basically apologizing for Sam Bankman-Fried and calling him innocent. That's going to be turned into an Apple TV series somehow. Maybe. We'll see if he overcomes his embarrassment on that one. I am, unfortunately, for my sins, still active on Elon Musk's X.com at David Z. Morris. And you can find me there and also on Blue Sky under the same tag. And davidzmorris.substack.com is where not only about some of the Epstein stuff coming up, but a lot of deep dives into techno-authoritarianism, techno-fascism, tescriel, which is a term I saw come up in the comments there. So check that out. Look in the archives. There's a lot to read about this if you're trying to get caught up on where all of this came from, because it really goes back a long time. Been developing not just for 10 years, but for like 30, since the 90s is when extropianism and a lot of the first steps of this came out. So there's a long history.
It's fantastic work. Thank you so much, David. David reached out to me, man. Come back anytime. If there's something you really, you think it's popping, or I'm going to reach out to you. David knows his stuff. And for those who are asking, all of this will be up later today on my Substack and David's Substack. So if you missed it, don't worry. David takes us from crypto to gaming to Gamergate to Epstein to these AI freaks to techno-fascism to their endgame. I thought I was very, very helpful. Thanks, David. I'm just going to keep going because that's apparently what I do. So I'm going to bring on Pete Dominic. This is going to be my friend Pete Dominic. David, I'll see you, man. And I'm going to link to your book and everything else.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I guess I'm going to X out here.
Later,
bye.
Buddy. So, folks, for those who are joining us, 3,700 people, don't worry. Later tonight, when I get time, I'm gonna chop it up into different segments. The first 30 minutes is with Prem Talker of Zeteo, fantastic reporter, and he really talks about like Epstein's connections to Israel. People are talking about his connections to Russia. UK heads are rolling. We know his connections to the Trump administration, but there are immense connections to Israel with Ghislaine Maxwell, Robert Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein, Ehud Barak, Israeli intelligence, and also we know now some billionaires who are part of the incestuous ecosystem, in addition to their appetite for girls and wealth, was also their connection to Israel. Then we had Ro Khanna come on. Congressman Ro Khanna, along with Thomas Massey, has been on top of the Epstein files. He gave the latest. Who you just saw was David Morris, a really brilliant technology reporter with this fantastic book, Stealing the Future. And now for the token white bald dudes, just to fulfill that diversity quotient, I have Pete Dominic. Pete Dominic, stand up with Pete Dominic. You know him, you love him. If you don't know Pete Dominic, you should. You have to follow him. Pete Dominic's been on top of it for years. He had a fantastic Sirius XM show. He was on CNN beforehand. He used to open for Stephen Colbert. He's a comedian / host. He's a one-man shop who now has stand-up with Pete. Have you gone on YouTube yet, or are you still doing the Patreon?
Yes. YouTube, Stand Up with Pete, and Substack, Stand Up with Pete. And yeah, I my entire daily podcast is subscribers only, ad-free. It's totally supported by subscribers at patreon.com/Pete Dominic. Hi, Waj. Thank you for having the bald white.
The ball. We needed the ball white because I had a brown, and then I had another brown, and then I had an elder white with hair, and David had great hair, mashallah, for a tech nerd, and now I needed the ball whites. Pete, You said, let's talk. Whenever we talk, we just riff. What's on your mind, sir?
Well, listen, I like Don Lemon. Don't get me wrong.
Well, Pete has been on Don Lemon too. We're better. Pete likes me more than Don.
I actually don't like Don Lemon. I never liked Don. I worked with Don Lemon at CNN in 2010. I worked with a lot of people who worked with him. I never liked Don. I thought Don was about Don. I think Don is still in large part about Don, but that doesn't make any difference. Like my personal opinion on, a lot of his bad takes and so on. Like what he's doing as an independent journalist is important and it's exciting. It has a lot, and it's working out great for Don Lemon. So power to Don. Anybody could say I'm jealous that he's gained this huge following, and all I would say is please arrest me.
Yes, please, someone.
I've been trying to get arrested to grow
please
my
come
following.
arrest Pete Dominic. He is not a white man. He is a light-skinned Venezuelan.
ICE tried to arrest me the other day. I was trying to get arrested by ICE, and they're like, "Are you sure?"
He's like, "Yo quiero Taco Bell," and they're like, "I don't believe you." And like, "Yo soy Mexican."
Like, didn't you start the day with us?
Where's you
Yo soy.
Where's you trying to interview? Go ahead, continue.
I do want to talk about two things in particular. One is I don't believe there's any evidence of cannibalism in the Epstein turmoil, and I want to. A lot of smart people, including my own daughters, are asking me this. Friends of mine, they all think because TikTok is telling people this because some guy who was on mushrooms alleged some nonsense that was never corroborated, and I just think that we shouldn't be reporting things, those of us that have platforms and journalists, obviously, that aren't true. Just because someone murdered 10 people doesn't mean we need to lie about them murdering 2 more. And so there's terrible things. Pedophilia is awful. Rape is awful. Those are we don't have to make things up. And a lot of smart people are buying that. That's number one. And the other one that I want to talk about is just reminding people, and I think this is a little bit more fun, yet still insidious and pernicious, that undocumented people don't vote in American elections. And there is some comedy here because you would have to be fucking stupid. You're stupid to think that they do. I think people that think that undocumented people vote in elections are just sometimes like these people that will believe anything else is because someone's making a good argument. But it's usually someone who hasn't registered to vote. Like you have to have all kinds of ID to register to vote. Then you go and your name is there and you can vote. And here's the thing that I think, imagine some undocumented person. Let's say he's an Asian guy and he walks in and he doesn't speak very good English. And he's like, my name is Giuseppe Antonucci. I live at, and it's like, that would be stupid. Why would you do that? Why would you be here, quote, illegally, undocumented, and then commit a felony? For what reason? So you got to be stupid, I think, to believe a lot of things. And there's a lot of progressives, a lot of people on the left, a lot of well-meaning people that are believing a lot of things. And I think it's important that we do our best to help them, guide them, using all the sources that we have, our experience, our credibility, our critical thinking skills, and our sources to tell people where the truth lies, because the truth matters. And we as progressives, or I don't know, people on Earth One, we can't become them and start believing shit just because it's convenient. Just because I hate someone doesn't mean they did this thing. That's it.
No, I agree. And I think, something I've been talking about last couple of days, especially with the Epstein files, some of my viewers are like, we'll talk about this and talk about that. And I'm reading them and I'm like, I ignore it because I know the data's not there yet, right? And I think especially with the Epstein scandal, because it seems so conspiratorial, Pete, right? It seems so outlandish, but I'd say just follow the evidence. And if that means taking a little bit of time, so be it. And I agree with you, like a lot of people, because the folks are like, well, Pete's just joking about the cannibalism. No, QAnon, folks, and we just talked about QAnon and how QAnon started, Gamergate, right? How it was birthed from the right wing. And it might have been even a psyops, a projection to cover what they were actually doing, right? They blamed the entirety of the left or anyone who was a critic of Donald Trump, I'm not making this up, of being a devil-worshipping child sex trafficker who not only raped children, but we allegedly ate children as well. That's where the whole eating children has come on. And now people are saying they're eating kids. And I'm like, whoa. The rape by itself is bad enough. So we have to be factual. We can't allow ourselves to be hijacked by sensationalism and conspiracy theories. Go with the facts. The facts alone, Pete, what we found out, and this is just what we know. It is horrific enough. Right. Like if you connect the dots, you're like, you don't need to like lean in to the exaggerated stuff. Right. And even when some of these, I'll give you another example. Some people are like saying, well, that testimony and that testimony. I'm like, that testimony of one particular individual seems so outlandish to me that unless I get it completely verified, you don't need to go there. Right. You have enough there. And when it comes to, if you will, the liberals, right, when it comes to progressives in this particular moment, what is your take on how progressives should demand accountability? Or let me put it this way. How should Democrats be demanding accountability in this particular moment? Because as you know, the Democratic brand is lower than Trump's brand. Yes, Democrats are winning, but people don't have faith in the Democratic Party or Schumer or Jeffries. But now you have this friggin' blitzkrieg of information, scandal after scandal after scandal. You have all the polls against ICE, against Epstein, against the economy, against crypto bros. How do you, as the white, want the Democrats to fight in this moment?
Well, I think that I don't agree with the fact that the Democratic brand, I mean, I agree that that's the polling. I agree that the vast majority of people think that the Democratic brand is bad. But I follow this, and I've been covering politics for a living for 15 years. I've seen all of it. And I could name dozens of fighters in the House that are currently elected. We'll call them electeds. People who are currently in office. I think there are so many effective Democrats. And I think there are so many more that are running each and every day. And I have great faith and great support. I'm supporting different candidates all over the country in all different kinds of ways. I think that they are fighters. I do believe that there, to some extent, this narrative about the left is having its own Tea Party moment, which references that Republicans back in 2010 got rid of establishment Republicans and they elected like radicals on the right. That
2014, right here in Virginia, David Bratt's surprise victory.
Exactly. Who was the guy that he beat? He was one of the three.
Eric Cantor, who was supposed to be the future
Cantor
leader.
Was one of the most powerful Republicans. He got beat. Well, so did the congressman who AOC beat to become a congresswoman whose name I don't even remember anymore. See? And so I do think that there's a lot more. I think we're seeing that. I think it's different. I think it's way more grassroots as opposed to the 2010 Tea Party movement was absolutely funded by a whole bunch of billionaires, Americans for Prosperity, the Koch brothers, and others. So I do think that there are a lot of fighters currently elected. I think there are a lot of people running. I think there are a lot of good people, honest people, smart people. I mean, you're going to tell me that Jamie Raskin and AOC and Jasmine Crockett and dozens of other congressmen, Ro Khanna and Congresswoman Stansberry, and just so many just come to mind that I think are really good fighters. And we don't have to agree with everything that they do and say, but you know, we have to understand that there are a lot of really important, and that it takes, politics is a thing. Like you have to get things done. You can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And I think the left is in danger of being so angry and so frustrated that we eat ourselves alive, that we're never satisfied unless we have perfection. So I see a lot of fighters. I'm very excited by what I'm seeing. I think that when it comes to the Epstein files, I think more than anything else, the fighters are the victims or survivors. And I think that they are never going to let this go. And it's really clear who is protecting them. Almost the entire Republican Party, but for Thomas Massie, who I'm not going to say is brave. It is not brave. It is not courageous to stand up and stand by the victims of sexual assault. I've been doing it my entire career and life, and it doesn't take courage. It takes a certain sense of moral clarity, knowing right from wrong. It's not hard to stand on the right side of things, at least not for me. And I'm tired of people acting like it's brave to stand with victims. That's just normal. That's being a good human. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing with a whole bunch of congressmen, certainly Democrats. And why aren't the Republicans joining them? This is This is the worst thing, the worst crime you can commit. And they've been calling us pedophiles. I've been called pedophile by so many people in my town. Why? Because I fought for LGBT youth at our public schools. Because
can you tell people what happened in your town, specifically at the school?
Yes, I mean,
started at the school.
Which is, by the way, the thing that we should be looking for with our journalists, with our commentators, with our influencers, with our Substackers. Like, this is like being the change you want to see has always been my mantra. I've said it at the end of my show every day. I've done a daily show for over 15 years. Be the change you want to see. And if I wasn't that, I'd be the biggest hypocrite in the world. So when all the shit went down in my local town and the moms from Liberty came and the fascists came, first they came for black folks and they were screaming about all the, critical race theory nonsense and DEI. That was one cycle. The next cycle, it was LGBT youth and worrying about trans girls using the bathrooms and playing sports. And through all of that, I went to every meeting I could and I spoke out and I spoke up at those meetings and I posted on our local Facebook. And as a result of a lot of the activity and as a result of getting their media story killed because they were going to lie about a black family in our town, as a result of that, they called in a fake child protection services call, an anonymous call on me and said that I was sexually assaulting my then 15 and 17-year-old daughters. The detectives had to come to my house and interview my daughters about their relationship with me, which is my, like yours, my crown jewel of my life, my relationship with my daughters and being their dad and being a girl dad and learning from them. And luckily, my 17-year-old daughter, not luckily, I think she's just brave and awesome and smart. She said to these police officers who were interrogating me because local fascists called in an anonymous fake complaint, obviously, she said, the only reason you're here is because my dad's a good guy. That's why you're here. My dad and I are super close and we have never had anything like this. This is to silence him. They were trying to silence me because I was so effective. This is what fascists do. This is organized crime. And that is scary. I mean, it was the nail in the coffin, as you know, because we're good personal friends in my marriage. My wife was like, I married a comedian, not an activist. And I was like, I get it. But that's the truth. I mean, that's what we have to always be doing as allies, as white people. And that's what people are doing in Minneapolis. And that's what people are doing around the country. But that stuff is exactly the kind of behavior that's criminal behavior. Calling in an anonymous fake complaint, trying to destroy me and silence me. These are the kind of things that happen to people who are trying to speak out, speak the truth, be the change they want to see. And that's why we've got to support these types of journalists and these types of creators and not support people who are just saying shit to get clicks, even if they're well-meaning, even if they're on the left, even if they're progressives, if they're lifting other people's work, if they're doing unethical things, if they're trying just to be spectacular. I'm so tired of that because there are so many of us that are doing the work every day and that are putting ourselves out there, putting ourselves in danger, limiting our ability to earn an income. And that's exactly what independent journalism is. And by the way, that is what Don Lemon did. So I'm giving him a hard time, which I'm always happy to do. But that is what he did. And that is what you've been doing. You've received all kinds of threats throughout your career just for being Muslim and saying things, right? I mean, so it's a matter of courage to some extent for those of us who are doing this, proudly doing this. But that's where I think that comes in. And that's the truth, that people need to know that this is what they will do. This is what they will do to silence us.
And, I haven't been friends with Pete Dominic just because of his shiny bald head. It's also because like he said, for 15 years, he's been on the right side of history. And he has used whatever privilege and platform he has been given when he had the Sirius XM show as a comedian on CNN to fight for the rest of us and for freedom and for democracy. And I remember when you were telling me, hey, man, like this is happening in my local town. I got to do something. And folks, this was in the last 2 years. If you remember, they spent, and by they, I mean the right wing spent over $200 million on anti-trans panic. And it helped nudge the election in the direction of Donald Trump. I'm here in Virginia. I wrote about it 5 years ago, Pete. We were talking about it. I'm like, folks, you're not paying attention. They're using Loudoun County as a test ground for CRT and BLM and Moms for Liberty. And this is, listen, Glenn Youngkin is going to scare over, and I think he's going to win. I think he's going to win. People are like, no, Waj, he's not going to win. I'm like, you're not paying attention. I think he's going to win on this panic. It worked for Glenn Youngkin in Virginia. And what happened, Pete? They nationalized it. They went from town to town, and then voila, they went on the anti-trans panic. The anti-trans panic then went to pro-Palestinian panic. Pro-Palestinian panic, undocumented immigrants. Undocumented immigrants, Venezuelans, then Latinos,
Yep.
And then white people being shot and killed in the street by ICE, Pete.
And when I brought this up, I forgot, I get so emotional about that because what happened to me personally, I got called a pedophile by my neighbors in person and on Facebook because I was standing up for LGBT youth, not because of anything that I'd ever been accused of doing, which had never been accused. They just call you that. It's a terrible thing to call someone. It's way worse than a racist epithet.
No, it destroys you.
Because it can destroy your career, your ability to earn an income. And if I believed that someone was assaulting kids, I would do something about it. And this is what people, and someone in the chat said, did I report them and charge it? It was anonymous. I did everything I could. I have access to the best lawyers, the best people in law enforcement. You cannot do anything as an argument to not allow these things to be anonymous. But I stand with those who've been abused who have to call anonymous calls on their abuser. So I stand by it in general, but that's what they did. There's no way of proving it, but they will call you a pedophile just for standing up and standing by LGBT youth. And now they're the ones literally protecting literally. And then their supporters are just either in ignorance or they don't know what to do.
But they know. Look, they know. And I think going back, because I said this to Ro Khanna when he was on, we're talking about a cover-up. And I said, I've been saying this since the summer, Pete, that this is the biggest political cover-up we've seen in modern history.
For sure.
Ro Khanna agreed with me. He says, this is a cover-up. He says, in the summer watch, I'm paraphrasing, we're going to have this conversation up later. In the summer, I wouldn't have agreed with you. But after what I've seen, I agree with you. This is a cover-up. And then I said, it isn't just the Trump administration, to your point. It is all the Republicans, because it shouldn't just be Thomas Massie next to you. And I'll give Thomas Massie a bit of credit. He's gotten death threats. The entire Republican Party now is after him, right? What he's doing and Khanna's doing in a normal world, you shouldn't celebrate this. It's normal shit. If people are getting raped, if girls are getting raped, it's your job as an elected official to do this. Like, you shouldn't be getting garlands of roses. But the fact that they're fighting this, and now we realize why they're getting heat, is it's not just Republicans, right? It's not just the right wing. It's not just the Silicon Valley bros. It's an entire friggin' class of rich people who had no problem either raping girls, covering up the rape of girls, or Pete doing business with the rapers of girls if it benefited them. And what I said is, I told them this. I'm like, it isn't just the Trump administration. All the Republicans are part of this cover-up, Pete.
If we come away from this, if there's any way to just consolidate around a class war, I'm for it. Like, I'm for, because it's so easy to understand how rich, powerful people, especially men, why they do what they do, because they think they can get away with anything. And even if the moral question wasn't there, even if the crimes weren't committed, we still don't want, because of economics, billionaires. They should be eaten, not the babies, which is not a thing that's happening. Billionaires should not exist. It's an insane idea to think that you can have one person, much less hundreds and thousands now of billionaires with so much net worth, while the rest of us are fighting for scraps. And so the idea that they get away with it, I mean, like, take it outside of the horrific sex crimes. And all we have to do is look back to 2008 and what happened in the financial crisis, the global financial crisis. What happened there? What happened now with the Trump administration disarming and destabilizing the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which was created to re-regulate, to solve some of the problems. What happened when one guy individually defrauded people of their savings? What's a worse white-collar crime than taking some old person's entire retirement from them with a scam and a scheme? Trump gave that guy a pardon. He pardoned him for that, and he didn't have to pay restitution. So I'm for policies that will absolutely create more economic equality. You can call whatever idea you want, democratic socialism, call whatever you want. I don't care. I'm for way higher taxes. I'm for much more regulation. And so that these people never get so powerful to begin with, so that they think they are invincible. Because that's what we see. It's natural for people who have that kind of money and power to think they're invincible, especially dudes. I'm sorry, it is. So let's not let people accrue and sustain and give to their relatives that much wealth. How about that idea? It's been tried. It works all over the world.
Oh, this is where now I'm going to push back a little bit against you when you said, I agree with you. Well, maybe you might agree with me. I agree with you when there's a lot of good Democratic fighters. I do. And I lift them up and I give them credit. the establishment. When I criticize the Democratic establishment, it's different from the good Democrats, meaning the Democrats.
I like that nuance. I like that hair splitting, and I do like.
No, but I think it's important, right? Because you don't want to throw all the Democrats under the bus, because you got people like Chris Van Hollen, you got people like AOC, you got people like Murphy, who's doing some good work. You got people.
There's a ton of great senators. I can name like almost every senator in the Democratic Senate is doing really good work and has been for a long time. Most of them, yeah.
But now the person who has been anointed or thinks, and I think he peaked early. I've been following his career my entire life. The person who's the front runner, allegedly, and I don't think he will be soon, Gavin Newsom. When he was given a softball down the middle a month and a half ago about taxing billionaires, literally popular across the board, Pete. You know what he said? They're part of the Big Ten. Your response?
I think that anybody that doesn't want to tax the wealthy, and we can decide what those levels are, but the dollar you make over $1 million gets taxed a certain higher percentage. They don't get to make it through the gauntlet of primaries. I think that is a litmus test. Earlier, I said we can't agree on everything, but absolutely taxes on the rich. And my congressman is Mike Lawler. You know him? Just for Men guy.
Yeah.
Oh, he's the worst. The worst. And terrible. I was at one of his town halls where people were getting thrown out last year. And I screamed, tax the rich. And he said, that's not going to solve anything. And I said, do it anyway. I disagree that it won't solve anything.
He'll give us money. He'll hold them accountable. What are you talking about? We could fund schools and healthcare.
So yeah, no, I mean, I'm no huge fan of Gavin Newsom for the front runner for the nomination if we ever have another president. But I absolutely do think that question has to be answered. Yes, I will tax the rich, and there has to be in your stated platform exactly what that tax policy looks like. I mean, I've been talking about these types of policy issues for years with experts, not me. I have experts on my show, but someone like David K. Johnson, who wrote Perfectly Legal and Free Lunch. Go read those books. This is long before Trump. And there's so many other super wealthy individuals and industries and captains of industries who are rigging that industry. And now the Supreme Court is owned. We've got to end Citizens United. I interviewed a great person that you got to have on, Tiffany Muller from endcitizensunited.org. It's the 10th anniversary of that Supreme Court ruling. And what that has wrought is also really important. I knew then when I covered that issue, when I was talking to Supreme Court constitutional law scholars, when that decision came down, you knew what was going to happen. You knew bad shit was going to happen. And you also knew that the wrong people would be blamed, just like the financial crisis of 2008, which was global. They blamed Black people who they said couldn't afford houses that they bought, as opposed to blaming the financial industry who lobbied for years and won to deregulate the financial industry, to create these financial tools that blew up the economy. And the same thing can happen with AI and other industries with bubbles.
It's going to happen.
And so we absolutely have to be thinking about those things. And we have to make sure that we elect people who support policies, tax policies particularly, and talk to experts who understand them. And we have to fight back against the capture of the Supreme Court, because now every industry can do almost whatever they want. They're taking the guardrails off the fossil fuel industry, the pharma industry, obviously tech, which you've been doing. You should win an award for how much you've been covering the tech bros. You've been doing such an amazing job leading on that. All of the interviews that you've done on that, the way your understanding of that and ability to regurgitate it to us is of great value. There should be an award just for you. As a matter of fact, what have I got? I've got for you right here an old pair of binoculars.
I appreciate that. I want that to be called...
Thing with mints. That's half-eaten.
I want the mints, and I want that to be called the Edward Murrow Newsbreaker Award, created by me for me. I'm gonna be inspired by Donald Trump.
You talk about all these. You do what I've been doing for years, and you frankly do it better because you retain so much of it. But you talk to smart people who know what they're talking about on these issues, and especially when it comes to the tech billionaires and their philosophy and their agenda and their ethos and what they want to do. You have been having all the best journalists and experts on to talk about that. And
no, but you should have them, man.
Very important. I've had a couple of them on. I just don't understand it and talk about it quite as much.
That's a really good point. I don't understand it either, which is why. Well, now I understand it because I talk to, much like you bring on smarter people, and we have a glib understanding, right? And so I listen to these smart people, and I listen and I ask the questions. And then what happens after a while, and I'm sure this happens to you, is that like your neural pathways make the connections. And then now a little bit more, and a little bit more and more, I'm like, oh, okay, crypto. Oh, okay, AI. Oh, okay, it's a grift. Oh, fraud. Oh, okay, this is how they will use it for money laundering and sex trafficking. Oh, and now with the latest tranche of the Epstein files, of course Epstein was all in it. Why wouldn't he be? Because going back to your point, it's a big club. We ain't in it. And if I'm part of this big club and I believe God or nature or Kismet has made me the superior man by virtue of my wealth and whiteness, and the world is my oyster and there's no rules that apply, that's how these people operate, Pete. Let's be honest.
I'm so mad that as a white, that it's way harder for me than it was for my parents to afford to live comfortably. I'm at my parents' house now, helping out them, taking care of them, and thinking, you've seen these charts and how so much has changed in America, how Americans used to be able to afford to buy a home when they were in their 30s, and now you can't, even if you're like 50. Like, no one can afford to buy a home. Why is that? Well, there's a myriad reasons, but one of them is definitely private equity buying up all the homes. How is that fucking legal? Who is to blame? So, like, I'm angry that my daughters who are going off to college, and I'm now empty nest, separated, maybe I want to buy a new house. Like, they've rigged the economy against us.
Absolutely.
Even the whites, with all of my opportunity, with all of my privilege, with all of my success. I've had tremendous success. I've made a good amount of money, yet life is still really scary financially for someone like me. So for the rest of people who didn't have nearly my opportunity, it's that much more rigged. And that's what sucks. And that's what David K. Johnson has been writing about for years, and so many other great journalists. And we know what the catalysts and causes for these things are. It's before you get to Trump. It's what I've been talking about and screamed out with experts long before 2016 on my national radio show on CNN and elsewhere. These are the primary factors. We know who supports these policies and these ideas. They are entirely Republicans and certainly a lot of corporate Democrats. But even the corporate Democrats and a lot of Republicans want to get the money out of politics. Hate what happened as a result of Citizens United. Hate that super PACs and dark money has flooded every campaign. If you don't name any industry or name any part of your life, and I can connect it to how some industry or company has exploited, rigged, and lobbied the rules so that they can make maximum profit and put it way over people. And starting with climate change,
it's top versus bottom, man. It's top versus bottom. I mean, I think
that's what you said last time we were alone.
Yeah. Hey, top one, but bottom will get revenge. It's Qasim says, right? Or what I say, it's the 1% versus the 99%. Like, look, at the end of the day, you're a comedian, you're a storyteller. I started off as a writer. I will still like to write. But human beings are storytelling animals. And this is why I think it's a very easy message, and why so many corporate centrist, Democrat, lefty, center left Republicans are so resistant to it. Is the narrative is simple. Let's call ourselves the protagonist. The protagonist is the 99%. It is the whites. It is the browns. It is the blacks. It is the moms. It is the people who want to be middle class. It's most of us. We want to get to a goal. What's the goal? You want to have, a job. You want to pay your bills. You want to maybe have a house. You want your kids to have a good life. That's the goal. Yeah. There's a villain. There's a villain impeding the goal. Who's the villain? Not a Somali, not a Haitian, not a trans kid, not a pro-Palestinian activist, right? Not the deep state, the left. Oh, no. It's the deep state, which is the broligarchy, which is the 1%, which is the Epstein class, which is this entire group of people.
Which owns the Epstein class, owns the Supreme Court, which buys them RVs and pays for their kids' college and pays
everything, man. They funnel money to both sides of the aisle. Everything. And I think the Epstein, Pete, to your point, the latest tranche of the Epstein files just confirms it. Like, it makes it undeniable what you have been saying for 10 years, what Bernie Sanders has been saying, what so many people have been saying. This is, and it's race and class, because these people are also white supremacists, folks.
Intersectionality, for sure.
You cannot separate race from class, which I think is a weakness of many white progressives. It was a weakness of Bernie 10 years ago. He didn't see it. He didn't articulate it as much, but now he gets it. You cannot, in America.
Kimberly Crenshaw's been writing about this forever.
You cannot separate it, but it's race, it's power, it's white power. It's white power in the hands of the billionaires. And I think now it has become unmistakable in the past week, Pete, which is why these Democrats who are not on board with fight the oligarchy, fight the oligarchy, tax the rich, I think they're done. I don't think they have a shot in 2028 if we have free and fair elections.
No, I don't either. And I want to talk to you about that. You know, I don't think I told this, but one of the smartest kind of, I guess, financial things we did is my ex-wife is a first generation American and her parents are Italian. So she was able to get her Italian citizenship and her passport. And then working through her aunt, that's still in Italy, she was able to recently get both my daughters their citizenship. So they're dual citizens. My younger daughter is going to college in Europe because for two reasons. One, she wants to set up and get established there because there's way more social mobility over there. They don't have nearly the types of problems with wealth concentration that we do, obviously. And they don't have to, and this is the key, and it seems so trite and repetitive, they have to worry about losing their health insurance.
Yep.
That is uniquely American. It's insidious. It's evil. It's gross. It's anti-all religion. The idea that I have to worry about that is so sad. And that's why those countries are often ranked the happiest countries in the world. And the other reason why that she wants to get out of here, and she wrote, they'll post on Instagram when they're seniors in high school, where they're going to the college, a baby picture of them. And she's like, University of Amsterdam, peace out, America. Part of the reason why my daughter and many kids of her generation are scared to go to school in America because they're scared to be shot. I never thought that was a rational fear because it's very unlikely, and that's how I live my life. But it's way more likely in America. And just the simple idea that that could be a possibility, and it was over and over, every year of her schooling, she saw people her age gunned down in school. She wants to get out of here because of that too. It's so sad. It's so frustrating that this country treats its people so terribly, that my neighbors, call me a pedophile because I stand up for LGBTQ. We have become each other's enemies, and it is the saddest thing I think about, what's happened in our country for people of our generation is how far we have gotten away from each other, our loved ones, our neighbors, our relatives, our coworkers. It's deeply saddening and depressing to me. But while my daughters are both going to Europe, and so is my ex-wife, I will stay here and fight because I live to fight bullies. That's what I do. It's who I am. It's why my show is called Stand Up and has been for 15 years. And I'm not going anywhere. They can keep trying to silence me. I would rather die doing this or be silenced or lose all my money, whatever it takes. It gives me tremendous purpose to do this kind of work, and I'll continue to do it. So we all have to.
You're like me. We're masochists at the end of the day, because I had this conversation with my wife. I think America hit the high water mark in the past, and yeah. I'm not a cynic, but you have to look at I'm a pragmatist, and I'm like, the country's never going to reach where it was in my lifetime. It's just not. There's been generational damage. That doesn't mean you give up. So the question then was, well, where do we go for our kids' sake? And your children are not the only ones. For the past 2 years, I've heard many kids.
Oh no, it's people.
They're like, I'm going to Norway. I'm going to England. Why should I stay here in America? They don't care. Like the whole mystique, the romanticism. They're like, no. They're like, why? People are going to the East, right? And I think that's going to be more and more. America's going to be more weak, more poor, more isolated. Sadly, I think we're going to go through a bunch of things. But then at the end of the day, like you, I'm a stubborn shit, and I'm like, gotta fight the
I don't know. For me, I mean, you can call it masochistic or stubborn. Like to me, though, it's more deeply philosophical. To me, it's about purpose. Yeah, and it's about like what I've established and accomplished in my life in this beautiful vessel that I'm traveling through life in, with this perfect symmetry in my face. I have accomplished a certain amount, and I want to make sure that I continue to use what leverage I've gotten, which is not as much as most, but a lot more than others, to keep screaming, to keep fighting, to keep going everywhere and make sure we're covering all kinds of atrocities and also these horrific policies that don't benefit us. I mean, they have us so divided over such dumb shit. I mean, it's so frustrating to me that my neighbors believe that undocumented people vote in elections. You just have to live at the very top of bullshit mountain, be stone cold stupid to believe that some guy who came here for a better life is going to go vote in an election that he's not allowed to vote in. He can't do it. When he shows up, his name is not on. You think he's going in there and presenting? Hi, the guy that looks like me walks in and goes, hi, I'm Wajahat Ali. They're like, no, you're not. Or a guy that looks like you walks in and says, I'm Pete Dominic. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I'm Pete Dominic, and I'm a bottom. And they're like,
How do they know that? Is that on my voter roll?
like, sir, this is not a Wendy's, and that is way too much information.
This is the Democrats want to make you have to check your sexual position when you register. Is that the America that you want?
Democrats want to make you into bottoms. That's what
they want to make. The Democrats want to make all women scissor each other. They do.
They do what?
Some of us.
Yeah,
some of us.
It's because fear hijacks rationality. The amygdala fires, fight, flight, and otherwise smart people believe lies that comfort them. And the biggest lie,
perception, exactly that. I get in an argument with my friend S.E. Cup about this, I don't know, last year before the election, and because they're about crime. People are terrified of the high crime. Republicans have been doing this, right? This playbook for years. And it's like, we live in my community. People are terrified about crime. I'm like, where? What crime? What happened?
Well, the
did your house get toilet paper?
Girls, that's fine. That's
exactly.
Fine.
But like, if there's one crime, it's too much, they think, in their neighborhood. But there, as he Cup said, it's how people feel. No, I don't want people to make decisions for their family or for their kids on how they feel. I don't want to go through that neighborhood because it scares me. I've been going through that neighborhood every day for the last 20 years, and nothing has ever happened. And I saved 15 minutes. What is wrong with people? But people make decisions based on what you just said, as opposed to based on rational statistics and having a kind of a threat matrix that doesn't bring I'm so mad at my generation of parents. This is another conversation we've had before, for being these helicopter parents, for worrying about everything, every single possible danger, because what that does is it makes their kids fraidy cats, makes their kids have constant anxiety about it that isn't going to happen to them. Meanwhile, my daughters are both eminently successful, confident, strong, independent young women. Why? I firmly believe because we pushed them in the deep end. We sent them into New York City when they were teenagers to ride the subway alone. We sent them into stores to buy their own stuff. We made them handle their business, and we didn't worry about them being kidnapped or being molested. I'm not worried about a stranger. I'm worried about a priest. Those kind of statistics should matter when you make decisions about where you're leaving your kids. I would way rather leave my kid on the corner of the most dangerous street in Brooklyn than a church, a Catholic church.
Well, I would much rather leave my kid on the dangerous street in Brooklyn than with Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. And
that. Absolutely. I'm not afraid. It's like this idea of Bad Bunny. People are like, that you can't enjoy other cultures, that you can't enjoy Black culture because
you
you're
can't
white.
even expose them to it. That's the main thing. It's the fear.
Yeah.
What you just said explains the collective freakout of MAGA over Bad Bunny, that we are so insecure about our culture, our traditions, that we have so little faith in our children that what we have taught them, everything will fall apart, right? And so we can't even expose them to other languages and cultures. Instead, what do we have to do? Literally ban the books and remove monuments and exhibits to slavery. It's the height of
erase history. As long as I will draw the line if it's not Bad Bunny, in Latin American culture. If it was your people, like Pakistanis, India, that part of Asia.
It was Bollywood.
If it was Bollywood, that I'm not ready for that. I would be out protesting. I don't need the Pakistani culture being. What is it?
Forced down your throat with turmeric. Yeah, he's like, easy there. Too much turmeric. He goes, I can see the hips moving, but this is too much for me. What the hell are they doing with their necks? Where is their vertebrae? This alien species.
I'm so into
a right winger. He goes, Pete was a great ally, but once he saw that Bollywood halftime show, he goes, that did it.
That's
done.
Where I draw the line.
He goes, I felt things in my loins when I saw those women in saris, and I didn't like it. I liked it, but I didn't like it.
The Saudis. I'm so ignorant about Pakistani culture. I can't even make the racist jokes I want to make right now. I'm like, oh yeah, the halftime concert. Everybody has to take off their shoes and eat rice or something. I don't even know. I know nothing.
You have to take off your shoes before entering the stage out of respect for the elders.
That's why. Why was he hanging off the power
utilities?
What was that about? I don't
Puerto
understand.
Rico, right? You see Puerto Rico. You have a lot of those there, and you see the workers, and you wanted to be with the workers. And
I thought he was gonna. I was worried he might fall. He didn't look like he climbed up there on his own. He was just the thing was shaking. I was like, I
thought it was a fantastic halftime. Pete, shamelessly promote yourself to the 44,500 people watching.
Oh my God! Substack, Stand Up with Pete, please. I've just started over here, and YouTube, Stand Up with Pete. I do a daily show. I bring on smart experts from all walks of life. I've been doing it for over 15 years. SiriusXM, CNN. It's mainly as a podcast, but you can get it everywhere else. I do all my interviews live on YouTube, and I talk about the most important issues that affect you, your family, your community, your planet. And I've been
wait. Lisa said because of the power grid being privatized. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. That makes so much sense because of the power grid. That makes so much sense. Sorry. PR, of course, that makes sense. PR has electricity issues, 6 months without power because of the hurricanes. I thought it was also class. He wanted to get there and
talk. Every single thing in that, every single moment of that Bad Bunny concert reflected something about Latin American culture, and most of us don't know exactly what it meant. But if I do like learning, so thank you, Lisa, and anybody else who's teaching us what the significance of any of it was. But the best was that Pedro Pascal and Jessica Alba were there.
Oh yeah, that's I said that to my wife. So I really appreciate that because I thought I had a good deep cut understanding of many of the things, and the power outage just made sense. I thought it was because of him just putting himself side by side to the workers who were putting up, the power. I thought it was a classic, but that makes perfect sense. So there's so many layers to that I missed. Thank you all. That's why we have such a smart audience, and I appreciate that. Thank you all for.
You don't have to be anxious, by the way. Don't be anxious. I'm seeing people in the chat being anxious. Like we're all going to be anxious. There's a way to deal with this. Everybody read Pema Chodron. That's how I proselytize. Like when my kids were younger, Pema Chodron, the Buddhist monk, read When Things Fall Apart and Taking the Leap. Those two books have changed my life. Read the Stoics. Stoicism and Buddhism are the answer to anxiety. But just one quick anecdote, Watch. Your kids are what ages now?
6, 9, 11.
My daughters were around that age, and I heard a news report that there had been a kidnapping, and 2 girls were kidnapped at a roadside stand. And I heard it on the news. They always report when bad things happen to kids. And part of that is because it's an aberration. Every day, bad things don't happen to kids, and they don't report it because most days, bad things don't happen to kids. And you don't know a kid who's been kidnapped. You don't even know someone who knows someone who's been kidnapped. That's how rare it is. But still, I heard that news report. It scared the shit out of me. But then I kicked into what I've learned from Pema Chodron, what I've learned from Buddhism, what a lot of different philosophies teach, which was all you have is the present. And you can control your emotions in your mind in the present. And at that very moment, when I was terrified after hearing that news report that something bad was going to happen to my girls, that they could be kidnapped, I realized that they were in school, that they were safe. And I didn't think about the past. I don't want to think about the future. But in that moment, my daughters were okay. And I was able to remind myself and hear that chatter and stop with anxiety. Don't worry about your kids in the next day. Build them to be confident and independent on their own. You will not be there to save them from a tough argument or a violent interaction. You are not Batman. You are not a hero. Teach them to fish. Push them out. Teach them to advocate for themselves. That's what we do as parents, and that's what combats the anxiety. You feel better when you know that your child has a lot more agency, has a lot more control. And this is especially an important thing to do with girls because culture beats it out of them. And my daughters are fierce. They're independent. They're confident. They're so successful. I'm so proud of them. And I didn't suffer from crippling anxiety. My wife dealt with it a lot and went to all these sources, which I'm referring to, which really helped me a lot. But because of these theories and philosophies and staying in the present and realizing you can only control yourself, you cannot control the universe. And what you can do is raise your kids to be independent and responsible, understand the way, as much as you can, the way the world works. Because you're not going to be there to save them. You don't want to be there to save them. You want them to be advocates for themselves and take advantage of whatever agency they have. And I'm just like blown away by my daughters, 21 and 18.
And Pete's a superstar dad, folks, a great dude. And I really appreciate what you told people about anxiety because there's a lot.
Parents, especially. Yeah.
And we're going to go through a lot. It's going to be tough. But I believe, my wife and I were in the same boat, is that if given a choice between hiding or protecting or exposing, we have deliberately chosen to expose our children. And, they're at different ages. Your kids better than anyone, parents listening. But, we exposed them to what was happening with the George Floyd protests. They were even younger than they are now. We exposed them to the CRT and DEI stuff. We exposed them to, why people are marching in the streets for No King's Rally. And guess what? Kids are smart. Kids are sensitive. And not only are they smart and sensitive, they're already talking about it in school. Yeah. So when they see that your parents are able to give them that type of knowledge, it makes them more elastic more, we're talking about neuroplasticity. We have we have a really smart crowd today. First of all, y'all are awesome. Makes perfect sense why those polls were there. So now I completely get it. So thank you all, because of the Puerto Rican power outage, especially the hurricanes, and they've been completely neglected. But also, I was talking about neuroplasticity, and apparently we have someone here whose whole life has been spent on neuroplasticity. But you can make your children more resilient and tough. You cannot hide the world from them. They cannot.
They
have
dealing
to
with the world. But once they get a phone, they can see the world, and the world can paralyze them. And I just, the other recommendation, we always end up talking about parenting, you and I, is before you get your kid, put your kid on an anti-anxiety or antidepressant drug, an SSRI. Before you do it, and I understand why everybody wants to do it. Are they journaling? Are they meditating? Are they talking to a therapist? And are they exercising? Give them the drugs, but not before they're doing those. So those modalities to deal with anxiety and depression are so unbelievably important. They're unparalleled in their success. People want to go quickly to drugs. I understand it. I get it. I'm not even criticizing it, not criticizing anybody, but not before you've also done these or doing these in partnership with.
That's a key thing.
Get your kid to meditate. Help them. Everybody can do that. Teach your kids to journal. Make sure that they exercise, and do those things for yourself too. The answer to anxiety, believe it or not, is cognitive behavioral therapy, including cardiovascular activity, journaling, meditating, and therapy. If you're doing those things every day, you will have a much happier, more peaceful existence, no matter who you are. I firmly believe that. It's worked for me. It's worked for my family. And every platform I get, I like to proselytize about that.
It's very good. And also, everyone's different. And so, the key thing is, for many people, you need the medication, but medication alone isn't enough. You have to change your behaviors through habits. And that's what Pete is saying, right? And these habits are beneficial for everyone. Because medication by itself, without changing the habits, only gets you halfway there for some people. But for many of us, you need the habits. And again, since you've talked about it, I haven't talked about it much on Substack, only because I haven't been given the opportunity, but I wrote about it in the New York Times. I wrote about having OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. My father has it. I have it. Just how my brain it works, folks. I was born with it. I don't wish it on anyone. It makes life much harder. Our brain is like everyone else's brain, but about 2% of the people in this world, they have obsessive compulsive disorder, in which your brain is a hyperactive best friend and warns you about things that you shouldn't be warned about, but nonetheless, your amygdala fires. And so you're sitting there logically realizing, I shouldn't be worried about this. But if you had OCD like I had, we have the same brains, we're sitting right here, Pete, you would behave the same way, because your fight-flight system goes off. Everything in your body says escape, 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 right? And then what happens, folks, just to give you an insight into OCD and why it's not fastidious or being like, nitpicky, that's not OCD. It's your brain being a hyperactive best friend, warning you about things that you logically know you should chill about. And then for most normie brains, 98%, after 3 seconds, you and I have the same thought. What happens if I fall off this cliff? That's a silly thought. You move on. For OCD, it's not automatic. Yeah. We have to manually shift it back, which is why it makes it so much more painful. And again, I speak from experience. It's going to just stay with me, folks. 30 more seconds. It's going to connect. It's going to connect. At the end of the day, how do you control your life with OCD? And it's so brutal, Pete. This is it. The only way out is through. And the analogy I'll give is this. The analogy of the story. You have to enter the dark forest, filled with all the worst creatures and ghosts and goblins of your nightmares, armed only with faith and conviction. You cannot indulge in the obsessions because you become addicted to the obsessions. So you literally have to go through the dark forest. Everything pops up at you. Somalian, Haitian, transgender student, Pete's bald head, Wajahat the Muslim, Bad Bunny's like swaying hips, Jessica Alba, hello. And you
Why
have
is she there?
No, just I wanted to put something nice there. And so the bad hip, everything else is nice too, folks. I'm just kidding. But you have to go through without indulging in the compulsions or the avoidance or the escape. And then speaking about neuroplasticity, your brain, folks, literally changes. And then your brain realizes, oh, I don't need to be afraid of this. By exposing yourself and avoiding the compulsions is the only way.
how are you today with OCD?
Listen, it sucks. I won't lie. I'm one of
What
those
give me an
people
example of how it jumps into your life daily or when it does, like
all the time.
how it
All the time. OCD is like the imp of the brain. I remember when I was younger, I didn't know. So I'm like, certain things got stuck in my head. And I felt like, this image is stuck in my head. This thought is stuck in my head. It's made me unsettling. Let me erase the thought. And so, without realizing, my mental actions in trying to erase the thought and replace it with a better thought that would make me feel better was the compulsion. It's called pure OCD. And mine has shifted throughout my life, right? Because that's the thing. It's like it could be I'm convinced about contamination. One day was I was convinced that I didn't lock the door. Another day was like a bad, violent sexual thought. I'm like, what does that mean? I'm dirty. Another thing was, what did I say to that person? Let me replay that in my head. And you see globally, what's so fascinating about human beings, regardless of where they are, the same 6 or 8 tropes reappear, which just shows you it doesn't matter if you're in China, Mongolian, South Africa, or like how human beings are so connected to the same story, right? And so I suffered quietly for years. And then usually there's a spike event in your teenage years. And for me, it was going to college. And I'm one of those people, real quick. I mean, I'm sharing because you asked me to.
yeah.
People see me and they were shocked. And even when I wrote that piece from the New York Times a couple of years ago, I mean, shocked, because I'm one of those people who would rather die than like tell anyone what's happening. And people are like, wow, do you have OCD? You're the guy that we lean on for strength. And you seem to be the guy. Like my friends told me in law school during the bar exam, we purposely sat next to you because you emanated confidence and calm. And I'm like, isn't that interesting that outwardly people see me as this guy, but internally there's a raging storm. And so the only way I thought about this a lot, it goes back to your point. The way I'm functioned, the way I'm made by God, by nature, by Chisma. Pete, I have 2 choices. My instinct tells me never to go into the water because of the OCD. But I know if I never go into the water, I'll never be able to catch the wave. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So for a guy like me to operate, I have to deliberately every single day throw myself out there and resist the voices in my head that mean well, that are trying to protect me from myself. I hope that makes sense.
It does. Well, it makes what you're saying, you're illustrating what you said earlier is going through it. You have to go through it every day. I love the comments in the chat from the therapists and others.
Oh, I didn't read it. There you go.
I mean, just reinforcing a lot of what we're saying. Yeah, don't forget exercise. I mentioned exercise, and someone who's a therapist saying fully agree. And somebody else writes, remember, Buddha as Siddhartha was protected by his dad, the king. How did that go? To the point I'm making about protecting your kids. No, Siddhartha went out on his own and became the Buddha. So, I mean, there's 2,000 years worth of research and philosophy. It's all there for you. It's all there for you. I highly recommend Pema Chodron. I'm telling you, those books changed my life. The book is called, the one that really affected me, and so many people have read it, is called When Things Fall Apart. I might have told you this before, Waj, but I was hiking with my very wise 15 years older best friend of mine several years ago. And he told me to read this book when I was having some troubles. I just lost my job. And he said, you got to read this book When Things Fall Apart. And I said, but Ken, what if things don't fall apart? And he looked back at me on the trail and he said, Pete, things always fall apart.
That's right.
And I read that book and it just changed my life. And I have been pursuing, I read it like every day. I read chapters every day. I read them out loud. I've read and recorded them. Not only that, but obviously like Stoic philosophy and Buddhist philosophy. Those are the ways for me through anxiety and through depression and through all of this. And so anytime we share these modalities, especially for men, because somehow it's harder and weirder to talk about these things. But Waj and I are not cucks. We are not cucks. Beta. I'm a beta, but am I a beta cuck? Did I freeze? Are we here?
No.
Am I on?
No. I married up. My wife is super hot and smarter than me.
Yes.
I have.
Sorry, I love
I can give I drive my Honda Odyssey minivan. I think we're very confident men. I think we have a quiet confidence about us, and that is why we don't have to act like Elon Musk, who are very insecure, or these incel bros. I think that's why, like, we can openly say, yes, I have 2 daughters. I have a son. My wife is dope. I think that's a sign of confidence and masculinity. And I think these people who call us cucks are projecting. It's all projection. I think they're very weak. And I know some people, I'm reading the comments now, I'm catching up. and I just shared my article that I wrote. Wow, it was like 8 years ago. I'll tell you something though, Pete, and we've talked about this before. I'll keep you for a couple more minutes. The reason why it's important, I think, to talk about it, I appreciate you bringing this up because, especially for men, when I wrote that article, it was a real risk. This was 8 years ago. And I thought, man, if I write this, what are people going to think about me? What will people say? And this might hurt my career. This is 2018, because people might think X, Y, and Z. Instead, what happened, Pete, this is fascinating. Nobody mocked me. Nobody made fun of me. And on the DL, I got so many messages, not just from men, but like I can't name them. I'm talking about published authors, musicians who have suffered and continue suffering in silence, number one. Number two, a lot of people are like, thank you so much. I haven't mustered the courage to share that with anyone yet. And then I became like impromptu DIY therapist for a couple of people, and I ended up helping them, following some behaviors. But there's so many people who suffer in silence because of shame, and especially men. And Pete and I have always joked that there's so many men our age and older, like there's our generation of men and older, like we're this old beta model that like we just die at the age of 65, and people are like, that's so strange. He did pilates and yoga and he was a vegan. And then, but if you did a spiritual autopsy, you would see, oh, loneliness, anxiety, depression, sadness. I can't hear you. Your cuckness, the cuckness took over your voice. No, can't hear you. What happened, bro? You were perfectly fine. Go back to where you were. We'll talk about that. I had no idea that people seem to enjoy that little diversion we did into anxiety and OCD and how to manage it and mental health. It is a daily. Yes, Bill Burr did call it 2 years ago, called the Drop Dead Years. Very on point. I'm just waiting for Pete to come back. Pete has gone silent. Yeah, I don't wish OCD on my worst enemy. It is just the way my dad has it. I have it. A cousin came out and said I have it. My dad, respect, South Asian immigrant, senior citizen, goes to therapy, tells people about it. I mean, think about it. I'm talking about men, right? Men and culture. We don't talk about this stuff. So my dad, has controlled it with behaviors. I've tried my best to control it with behaviors. I white knuckled it for 20 years. And I got like 65% across. Nope. I'm just waiting for you to come back. And then finally, about 3 years ago, I decided to finally get help with a therapist. And the first thing therapist said is, oh, I'm sorry. That must have been painful. You struggled for so long. And then my wife was like, told you to go to therapist, idiot. And I'm like, and like, I'm just talking like a dude. Don't talk like this, but I'm being honest. Many men are like, therapy's gay. Empathy's gay. Talking about your feelings is gay. Pete Dominic's gay. Rubbing a cat's gay. Smiling is gay. Everything is gay. I'm sorry. Like, that's just a mindset of so many men our age and older. Everything is seen as weak and effeminate and gay. This is just how many men from our generation older talk. And instead of getting help, you end up suffering. And what makes it worse, I remember what made me finally do it, is I said, am I stopping myself from being the best version of myself, the most healthy version of myself? And is that going to impact, or is that impacting my wife? And is that impacting my children? So that's why I did it. I'll give Pete 5 more seconds. Gloria, that's so sad, Watch. I'm one of the good ones. But if I may, since I have 5,000 people here, life expectancy has gone down in Trump's America. We don't have healthcare. White men in particular, in red states with a lot of guns, where they have loose gun laws, are killing themselves. So men are killing themselves. Men are losing their jobs. I'm not just saying just men, folks, all right? And I know whenever I talk to this, a few women are like, who cares about the patriarchy? Who cares about these misogynist men? You should. They're going to be your sons, your uncles, your fathers, 49% of the population. There is something in society where if you see a woman, I'll give you an example. Suppose I go to Safeway later today, and I'm trying to get popsicles for my daughter. And I see a woman just crying. And I'm like, are you okay, ma'am? No, just had a rough day. Society allows that. And I'm like, you know what I'd say? I'm like, oh, okay, you're fine? She'd go, yes. Can you imagine a dude doing that? Like a dude, like just a dude like hairy dude like me, just sitting there like crying. You're like, excuse me, sir, everything okay? Just had a rough day, bro. Like, it doesn't happen. So men, especially our age and older, are taught to be a good man is you suffer quietly. Suffering quietly means you suffer well, and then you die. All right. Which leads to, wait for it, a lot of toxic men. And a lot of these toxic men are in power. And unfortunately, they have a lot of money. And you see these broken ass men with daddy issues who are incapable of dealing with emotions and thought, performing and cosplaying as these alpha crusaders who are completely effed up, right? That's the extreme version. But a lot of guys in particular, the ones of us who aren't psychopaths like Pete Hegseth and Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and all these other losers, they just suffer quietly. And I think what happens is it harms them, it harms relationships, and it harms Pete left. Let me add Pete one more time. Give me a second so we could say bye to Pete, and I'll say bye to all of you. And it makes them the less optimal version of themselves. So I hope this was helpful for people. For those who are watching, 5,000 people, that's usually more than we get. I was listening to Pete Dominic. We were talking to Pete Dominic. Pete Dominic is a fantastic host. Stand Up with Pete Dominic is his show. I want to post. Hey, hello? I can hear you. Hello.
Am I back?
You're back. You're back. All right. I was ending and I was promoting you. Stand Up with Pete Dominic, and I was just talking about, I don't know if you heard, how a lot of people seem to appreciate our conversation. And just a quick recap.
Yeah.
A lot of people older, we're not taught. Men aren't taught.
Yes.
To talk like this.
No, it's so important that we keep having this conversation. You and I have threatened to do this kind of on a regular basis. I mean, we don't necessarily want to be repetitive, but people always do really appreciate it. And, talking about our experiences and being vulnerable is strength. It's how I define strength. Confronting your demons, your emotional demons, your fears, whatever. I don't know if I told you this, but if you get one more minute or 2 more minutes, I don't think I told you this, but my parents were in a horrific car accident.
Oh, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. You didn't tell me.
My mom and dad are 79 and 81, and they were in a terrible car accident. My mom was in the ICU for 2 weeks.
Oh man, I'm sorry. I had no idea. Or else I would have.
I'm at my parents. I know, of course you would have, but I'm at my parents' house now, and my mom has just come home from the hospital after a month. And the reason I bring this up, it has to do with everything else that we're talking about in terms of anxiety and depression. The thing that I've also taught my daughters, and that I also want, this is the kind of thing men also don't talk about. The answer to going through that barrel of seeing my mother, painful with every breath, 15 broken ribs, 79-year-old woman who I adore, I'm very close with my parents. The answer to that, when she asked me, I don't know why this happened to me, I said, we will never know the answer. There is no answer to that. But we always must pivot to gratitude. The answer to all of this is gratitude. As we go through this nightmare that none of us ever thought we would be in this country, or frankly, in your life, your midlife crisis, your divorce, you lost your job. As you know, that's what happened to me. The whole classic midlife crisis. I lost my dream corporate job at SiriusXM, doing what I loved, hosting my national radio show. I lost my marriage. My wife wanted to get separated. And then obviously all the extraneous things that happened to you in your life. And to me, gratitude is the answer every day. Every day, gratitude is the answer. And that's what we have to look for, keeping track of those things. That's why meditation is important. But I just wanted to, leave you on this quote, because I'm mentioning Pema Chodron, and this is just one of many that I love. But she says, we think that the point of life, during life, is to pass this test or overcome our problems. But the truth is that things don't really get solved. They come together, they fall apart. Then they come together again, then they fall apart again. It's just like that. The healing comes from letting there be room for all of this to happen. Room for grief, room for relief, for misery, and yes, room for joy. And that's what you and I have. That's what, together, that's what so many of us have as individuals. And all of this is normal. And we have to find a way through it. And to me, dealing with my own personal stuff with my parents and this horrible accident, gratitude has been the answer. And with this authoritarian, horrific rapist as our president, gratitude is still my answer. it's still my answer that I'm up, that I'm alive, that I'm in the fight, that I'm here with you, that I'm in this moment doing this thing, moving my hands. The greatest moment of my career was interviewing John Lewis. That's the day I got off the bench. That's when I arrived. That's when imposter syndrome stopped for me. And he said to me, keep getting in good trouble. And getting in good trouble with you, brother, is the best thing, one of the best things in my life that I get to do with you and a few others. I love having these conversations with you. I love having these conversations with any men, with anybody, with any smart people. And those are the answers that are getting me through each day and through this journey that we're on together. And not to mention my amazing physique and low body fat percentage. This is all protein, bro.
Yeah. Pete Dominic took his rage and sadness and transferred it into a low body fat and a core strength and abs. And he also, he doesn't use product on his bald head. His bald head is actually that shiny, folks. It's good genes. And that's what happens when you're not a hater. You age well, like fine wine, like Pete Dominic. And I don't know, I don't drink wine, as opposed to terrible milk like Caroline Levitt. How are your parents right now?
They're okay. Thank you. My mom and dad are here. My dad didn't really sustain too many serious injuries outside of horrific, just, feelings being involved and guilt and everything. But my mom is home. She just climbed the stairs every day. There's a new accolade. I'm here. I'm training her. I'm moving her. And I've got so much closer with her if I even could. And I feel very purpose driven to be able to take care of them and to be able to show up for them. Is only because of the support that I have from so many other people who subscribe and support my show too. So thank you to all those people who do that, who are listening. But being with my parents, having my parents, 79 and 81, period, is a blessing in itself. And so the fact that they could have died or been paralyzed or anything, it's just gratitude in every moment. I just keep reminding myself. I wrote that on her dry erase board in her hospital room, and every room they moved her to. Big words, gratitude. In front of her and over her, there was another dry erase board, and I wrote Queen Mary. My mom's name is Mary. So everybody that came in, from a doctor to a nurse, had to call her Queen Mary and be reminded that gratitude is the answer. It's always the answer.
If I'll say, just from a spiritual perspective, an Islamic perspective, and you could be an agnostic, atheist, Buddhist, it doesn't matter. Take from what gives you strength and gives you hope. There was just a saying, a Sufi saint one time said that the two keys to heaven, figuratively or literally, in life are sabr and shukr. Sabr means patience, and shukr means gratitude. And it says, if you can hold on to sabr and shukr, this will be the keys to a figurative heaven or literal heaven, right? Horrible things happen in life to everyone, some to more than others, right? If you can endure it with joy, and if you can endure it with gratitude, that allows you to live your life with purpose. It allows you to, wake up in the morning. It allows you to take one step after another.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
If you let them win, if you let these bad people who are sadists, who enjoy your suffering, if you let them control you, if you let them win, if you let resentment and bitterness and holding a grudge win, then you're preventing yourself. We're preventing ourselves from seeing, hearing, tasting, and delighting. Again, Pema Chodron. I mean, that's remind yourself when you get anger, when you see the news, when you hear the horrible things, when you see these compared Obamas to apes, and you're outraged by that. How much of your power are you going to give away?
How much time? How much energy? Which is why Toni Morrison said racism is ultimately a distraction, and which is why I made the conscious choice to really enjoy that Bad Bunny halftime special. I said, let them be miserable with their halftime show. Let them be like, you know what? You go ahead and be miserable. I don't have time for this. I'm going to enjoy this. All of us are going to enjoy this. It was a great halftime show. And there's only so much time and energy I will give in my life to your misery. Real quick, Pete, if you don't mind, I brought Nick in. I got to run. You got to run. But I brought in Nick because Nick is on your wavelength. And Nick is a veteran of the Nick Paro show. And Nick has actually started, I think, a series talking about these issues. So I wanted to bring him on real quick. Wait, Pete, you were supposed to come back.
Right? Oh, no.
I didn't. Pete's like, all right, I'll leave. I'll bring Pete on real quick. But Nick, I wanted you to come on because I wanted you to promote what you were doing.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for inviting me. This is super awesome. I'll have to email you again. I want to get you on.
I was so out of it. I'm so sorry. Yes, you emailed me like a month ago.
Yeah, no worries. We're busy as hell. So I'm Nick Perro. I'm doing on the Sick of the Shit publications. I am doing a series called Intelligent Masculinity. It's both a written and in interview series. I've done 2 to 3 interviews a week since the beginning of January, going through different men who are of all stripes, from large platforms to small platforms to incredible groups of like just across the community. And we're learning so much about masculinity and what it means to be an intelligently masculine man, which is you take ownership for your actions and you hold yourself accountable for your actions, and you're willing to live with the consequences of your actions and your values. And
you want to get connected to Pete? I think he'd be great.
Yeah, I would love to get connected with Pete. I think that would be amazing. I'm trying to get connected with as many people as I can.
Let me do it right now. Hold, so I don't forget. Nick and Sick of This Shit meet each other. Nick and Pete. All right, it's done.
Appreciate that, Waj. That's amazing. Thank you.
And also shamelessly promote yourself.
Yeah, you can find me at Sick of This Shit Publications or sickofthisshit.substack.com. You can find me. We have a brand new shop, which is shop.sickofthisshitpublications.com, where we're doing merch, which is kind of sweet. I'm watching a baby, so there's little voices in the background. I know you got like 10,000 kids.
Baby and pet friendly zone. You will never have to apologize.
Oh yeah, pet friendly zone, baby zone, kid zone,
toy zone,
all toy zone, Star Wars zone.
If you've seen Nick, I don't know if you all can see. Nick has an exquisite collection on his right hand side of Star Wars minifigures. If you can just pan to your right, if that is possible. Awesome, that is awesome. Well done, sir.
And that's not even all of them. I have some of the Lego heads too of some of the Star Wars figures. Just like Waj, I'm a Star Wars. You have the better ones. I see that Eye of Sauron over there. Gosh, I've packed up so much of my Legos. I have the Eiffel Tower too, which fell down. And I have to rebuild it, which is kind of a shame. It has lights on it. It's all lit up. But you can find me at Sick of the Shit Publications, shop.sickofthisshit.com or shop.sickofthisshitpublications.com, or you can find me on Banner and Backbone, which is my alternative media site, which does civic space media and content where a lot of veterans and others are coming together to build a platform that is community driven and just civic focus, getting you back engaged.
And Kathleen said, and both of you guys somehow got married and had sex. Exactly. See,
yes.
You're redefining masculinity. And for those, one day I'll bring on my wife for her expertise. She's a fantastic family med doctor doing amazing work. But anyone who's seen my wife, the first question is how? And I'm like, I don't know. And then they're like, why? I
mean, I'm happily married for 11, going on 11 years this year. So
congrats. I'm on 13 going to 14. Pete, you were married for how long? Like you were married for
my wife left me. Nice to meet you.
Yeah. Well, hey Pete, it's nice to meet you.
We're actually, Nick, follow me and Nick. Pete, so real quick.
So many, but just to jump back into the conversation, and I'll jump out and watch you guys. It's really nice to meet you. Like
no, we're leaving. I just wanted to get you all both connected. I emailed both of you.
It's super important that men, so many men have gone through what I've gone through. We're basically, just to make it short, my wife wanted to end our marriage. We're still good friends. She's like my best friend. It's amicable. We're good. But going through that is horrible. I didn't want it. He wanted it. There are so many other men like me that they resort to and stay with anger and resentment. I never felt anger or resentment towards my wife for wanting to end our marriage. I was very sad. I've been lonely. It's not been easy. It's so important that men talk about this too. It's very hard. Like you're married for this long. You think, you've got a family like I do, a beautiful family, and then it ends. And whose fault is that? And how do you look to your friends? And were you a failure? And the answer to all those questions is myriad. It's different for everybody. But I wasn't a failure. We weren't a failure. Our marriage was a success. My daughters are amazing. We had a great run. It ended, but I'm not going to, it's so important that men talk with other men. There's all these divorced moms groups and therapists, and it's great and that's helpful. But men need to talk to other men because there's this idea of rejection from your wife. Your wife rejects you. Your wife doesn't want to be with you anymore. No one will want to be with you anymore. You'll never meet another woman again. You'll never be happy again. Men so easily go to a bottle and a bullet, and no one knows that more than Nick.
being a veteran and working with military members. I mean, this is such an important issue that men need to talk about. And I am very upfront and as honest and transparent as I can be about my marriage, the ending of my marriage, without in any way, criticizing my wife. And the most important thing that I learned, and I'll leave it on this, is simply that my wife didn't want to be with me in that relationship at the level it was anymore. I was angry. I was resentful. I didn't want to have it happen. She did and said ugly things to me at that time. I did some ugly things too. But what I knew I had to do was I had to model a respectful breakup for my teenage daughters. I had to let them know and model that when a man breaks up with them, or when they break up with a man, it should be done with love and kindness as much as possible. And I practice that as well, loving kindness practice. And so it's hard when someone that you love is being cruel to you or attacking your character or calling you names, but you for your kids, you cannot attack back. You have to role model a respectful breakup. I'm so glad that I learned that from my older brother who taught me that. I would have been a dick if not for that lesson. I'm sure of it. So it's an important conversation for men to have, to be honest and be vulnerable about. And there's no shame in it. It's not about shame. It's part of life. Things fall apart.
I can't wait to have a really good discussion with you. I actually I was just in an interview for my Intelligent Masculinity series with Arturo Dominguez. And it's so incredible to hear your story, Pete, on how you are. One, it's really incredible to meet you for the first time. But also it's incredible to hear your story and how it fits in with the discussions that I'm having. And I can't wait to have you on for an interview, but also I'm going to get you both on I run a show called the Diogenes Club, which is a men's club show with myself, Walter Ryan, Evan Fields, and Dr. Eric Lulov that you'd fit right in with to have this type of discussion about. Like, it's a men's club where you can cry with your friends, where you can cry with your brothers on TV or on a live, just having fun with each other. We danced. Walter danced for like 10 minutes and we literally derailed the entire conversation because someone was dancing on the show having fun. Like, that was the whole, like, we need that right now. And so this is, to me, it's so important. All right. I kept you too long, Wash. Thank you.
I gotta run. I literally have to go to the gym to stay overweight. Nick and Pete, really quick, shamelessly promote yourself to the 5,300 people watching.
Please subscribe to my podcast. I do it every day. And you can support it at Patreon. It's also on Substack. Please subscribe for free on Substack or whatever. Stand Up with Pete on that on YouTube. And that would be amazing. So I can continue to have great conversations with guys like Nick and Waj. Looking forward to it, Nick. Your turn.
Thanks, Pete. You can find me at Sick of This Shit or sickofthis.substack.com. I'm Sick of This Shit Publications and bannerandbackbone.com for both my publications, because I'm sick of this shit and now we're doing this shit. And we're going to restore integrity, service, and ethics throughout America. Thanks, Wash. You're awesome. And it's been really nice to meet you, Pete.
No, and for the 5,300 people watching, and especially if you're Nick and Pete's a subscriber.
Look at these two. Sorry, they both have Star Wars. You're both Star Wars nerds. Like, what?
Get into Star Wars and you'll get married.
Man, all I do is like super manly.
I've got Gizmo sitting here on the desk.
Gizmo!
Too.
I was gonna buy that. Oh, well done. I was gonna buy. I think you convinced me to buy that one.
You should. You can have him sitting or standing too.
Folks, I wanted to share this with all your subscribers. Ground News is my only partner that comes on. Ground News is a fantastic service. The only reason I partner with them is because they actually support other fantastic creators like Jen and Pumps at iHip and Qasim Rashid and Mehdi Hassan at Zeteo. Ground News was started by a South Asian woman who worked at NASA, and she used her brain to create this site, which is a fantastic aggregator of all the news. So it's a one-stop shop of all the news aggregated. But the reason why I support them is they audit the news. So if you look at the news, it tells you the bias of the news, whether they're factual, whether they go left or right, but it also tells you who owns that news outlet. And then they have something called Spotlight, which allows you to compare how the right wing looks at, Bad Bunny versus the rest of the world. So in addition to being a fantastic aggregator, Ground News is also an auditor. And I do this like only in a few podcasts, but since there's 5,300 people watching, they've given 40% off to anyone who joins up. Groundnews.com/hook. I don't get any money from this. It's groundnews.com/hook. So if you're a Nick subscriber, a Pete subscriber, try it out. Get 40% off. And people seem to really, really enjoy it. And then finally, the Left Hook. I'm a terrible capitalist. There's no paywalls. Everything is for free. I depend on the kindness of strangers, much like Nick and Pete. We're like Blanche Dubois without the melodrama, or maybe Pete Dominic is Blanche Dubois with the muscles. It's the lefthook.substack.com/special. It's 25% off forever. $3.75 a month, folks. If you can become a paid subscriber, please do. If you can't, just subscribe for free. It's all free. And I'll end this. I've been going for 4 hours straight. I think I might have to stop.
Go take a nap, man.
No, first of all, I'll break this all up. I'll have this up later tonight. First 30 minutes was Prem Talker of Ground News with a fantastic coverage of Epstein's connections to Israel and why it's important. Then we had Ro Khanna come on with some breaking news. He named the 6 people who were redacted. He calls it a cover-up, a Trump administration cover-up. He says the Epstein scandal is bigger than Watergate. Then we had a fantastic technology reporter who came on and literally connected the dots as to Epstein, the techno bros, Silicon Valley, and all these freaks and their fascist utopia. That's David Morris. And then we had this bald man, Pete, who was, was just lonely. So I decided to entertain him. And then Nick came on and we talked about how people need to be informed, empathetic, and they need to engage the world to fight fascism. And then Nick came on and it became a really interesting conversation about mental health and spiritual health and emotional health. Thank you all for watching. This will be up later today on all of our Substacks. Be kind, take care of yourselves, and please, oh please, don't be a fascist or a toxic man.